All right, we're live. It says. How's it going, there, Brandon?
Man, everything is good. I can't complain. I can't complain at all.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and since I'm the one doing the hosting and I'm on the left side and you're on the right, I'm going to go ahead and say we have Brandon Edmonds here, but actually it should be him hosting it and me as a guest
Yeah.
because this was his idea, but he was having some issues with StreamYard. So I'm going to let Brandon have the floor and we'll follow along. What's up?
Yeah. I appreciate you, man. So everybody, welcome back to the channel. First, I gotta say, man, it's an honor to have someone that I admire. In the dog game, it's not very people. If I'm being honest, it's not very many people that I admire, and I look at their programs and I aspire, to uh, be like them, and not be like them, like not in the sense of being exactly like them, but you know he's laid out the blueprint of how to be a reputable breeder. He's literally, and correct me if I say the wrong term. Are you a canine geneticist?
No, I'm just a person that studied biology and genetics, but my focus was always in animal sciences. And
Okay.
ever since I was a little kid, I just always really enjoyed all types of animals, but my sidekick was my dog. And so I remember as in college and in growth that I was searching for like the perfect dog because to me the perfect dog just didn't exist. Um, I had I'm going back a long time now. I'm going back to my late teens and early 20s. And so, I had very little knowledge of the American Pit Bull Terrier, but even the American Pit Bull Terrier, the ones that I did see were generally speaking, 35, 45 pounds. They just didn't have the size that I typically wanted. And a lot of them, as you know, don't have human aggression or human suspicion. And unfortunately, a lot of the ones that do don't discriminate. They're just aggressive to everybody. So obviously, you don't want that extreme either. Even though those may not be normal, those types do exist, and we're foolish if we pretend that they don't. So, if you're going to use a pit bull, it has to be the right temperament. You want one that's more got the stability of like a normal dog, where it's got good pack instinct and you know but still has a little bit of defense where it can be used in a protective situation. But I also like a lot of prey drive. But I wanted something bigger and I wanted something stronger and something more intimidating. That if it was to jump up on, and let's say you had a big jacket on, and if you wanted, we're talking about it in a protective situation now. If you had a big jacket on, maybe it just gets a little bit of your sleeve or your cuff. Well, next thing you know, you grab the dog by the back leg. If it's 35 pounds, throw it over a fence. It can't hurt you anymore. So you can't
Right.
do that with a bigger dog. So
Yeah.
we had Akitas when I was in my early 20s. I wasn't going to get rid of my Akitas because I had them, but during that time, I did a lot of research on different breeds, and I came across the World of Fighting Dogs that had Carl Simincic's. He's the one that authored it, but it had John Swinford's uh, dog, the band dog, the Swinford band dog, and I was like, man, this looks like what I'm looking for. And obviously, with my degrees in animal sciences, we studied a lot of physiology, a lot of psychology, a lot of genetics. My master's degree is actually reproductive physiology, but
Mm.
some of my favorite subjects were ethology, which that's something that doesn't get discussed a whole lot. But ethology and psychology are kind of similar because in
Yeah.
psychology you have B.F. Skinner and Ivan Pavlov and whatnot to talk about training and behavior modification. And in ethology, you don't really have the training aspect per se because ethology exists even when people don't.
Mm.
With psychology and sociology, you have to have humans, but with ethology, you don't. Basically, they're trying to look at why behaviors are displayed and
Right.
what makes behavior more frequent or less frequent, and it's all based off of going towards things that are good and avoiding things that are bad. And so it kind of really simplifies the training aspect because you don't have to put yourself in a quadrant of is this positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment, etc. It's just does the dog gain from this or does it lose from this, or does the animal gain or lose from this? And it really simplifies a lot of the aspects of training. And when, especially for protection training, it makes things a lot easier because you don't have to sit here and try to analyze what drive you're in. Is it prey? Is it defense? Is it fight? Is it pack instinct? Is it this or is it that? It's just a simple, does the dog benefit, reward, or does the dog find it aversive? You know, and so it's going to just respond with what works.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, man. I think I guess we can get into the conversation now. Talk about and you're gonna have to refresh my memory because I remember the post that we were having a conversation about. But if I remember correctly, you had a specific question for me, and I said we should go
Oh
live.
man, yeah.
And
I
it'll
remember.
probably come up in conversation. I'm probably gonna have to go on my Facebook and see what post that was. I should have did it before we got on the live. But
Well,
yeah.
I can probably find it pretty quick, or you can find it pretty quick. I can tell you if I go to that group, I know what group
Mhm.
it was in. If I go to that group and type my name
Yeah, it'll
and
come
search
up.
my post, it'll come up because I don't post very often. A lot of
Yeah.
people, are active on social media. I hate to say this, but it's the truth. I've been in catch up mode for about 5 years now.
Yeah.
We had a lot of, my mother's 91. I had
Mhm.
some nieces and nephews and siblings that needed some help. I had 150 dead trees on the property that I had to attend to. So, with my mother's aging estate, and then I had an uncle that passed away, the last 5 years have been really, really tough here. So
Yeah.
things are coming together now, and we're back to our business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but I'll tell you this: one thing I learned is when you get 3 months behind and you have to catch up, you can only catch up in your extra time because you still got to
Right.
wash the kennels, feed the dogs, maintain the website, do the breedings, raise the puppies, talk to customers. So all the catch up stuff that I have to do, which is really the training side,
Yep.
got kind of pushed back. And so now I'm back to my business, and I look forward to stepping back. And we used to advertise that we had the best band dog program in the world. I haven't really ran my mouth about that a whole lot lately because I feel like that's a spot that has to be maintained and earned. And
Mm.
I've got to put in my work and put the protection training back out there again, like we did for 20 years. We've been breeding dogs for 25 years, but for the last 5 years, we need to step up our game and get back to doing some protection work. But it's just the way life hits. Sometimes you get busy. And I retired 2 years ago from teaching, and so now I'm getting caught up, and
Yeah.
we're planning on actually building a building this year for so we can
Nice.
train year round.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be indoors or just a giant lean-to like a pole barn type thing, but we
Yeah.
are going to have an office in it at least, and then at least some fans and get out of the sun, get out of the rain, that kind of
Yeah.
situation. And if we need
Yeah.
to pack up a heater or something like that, so we can train in the wintertime or a swamp cooler in the summertime, we'll figure it out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the phase that I'm in now as well because it's I'm in Chicago, so I'm sure you know how the winters get here. And
Oh yeah, I used to live in Champaign Urbana.
oh, okay. There you go. So
Yep.
you know exactly what's going on here, man. And it's tough because I actually, truth be told, I actually kind of shy away from doing training in the wintertime because I don't have a facility right now. And a lot of people don't have space in their house to where you can really do it efficiently. So in the wintertime, it's tough, man, unless you have a facility. So, by this summer, my goal is to have a facility so I could really do it how I want to do it and be comfortable doing it. And truth, if I'm really being honest, man, if I'm being totally honest, when you're putting your stuff out there on the internet, you know, if people don't like you, they don't like you, period. So it really don't matter what you put out, they're always going to find something wrong. But the goal is to minimize the ammo that you give people when you're putting your stuff out there, right?
I hear
So
you.
yeah, yeah, and I
I say
just
yes. I say yes and no on that. I don't want to interrupt, but there's a
yeah,
time and place. Like
yeah,
I was
oh, for
talking
sure.
about. I was talking about the hurdles we had over the last few years. There's a time and
Yeah.
place, and
Oh yeah.
one of the things. Go back. Go ahead and finish, and I'll come back to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, no. It's just it's just certain ways. I don't really want to show a whole lot of videos of just training in the alley, just doing bite work in the backyard, because it just doesn't translate well when you're really trying to show certain details. Unfortunately, people lack the ability to look past certain things, right? And it just makes the water too muddy. So I'm trying to be more strategic, right? That's something my teacher Gypsy used to always tell me, man. Don't when you put your stuff out there, make it hard for people to be able to critique it negatively, right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like you, like I almost really don't care what people think when I put it out there, because I'm putting it out there for a reason. And most of the time, I'm not putting it out there for 99% of the other trainers that's going to look at it. I'm putting it out there for that 1% that's going to pick something up, that's going to learn it, that's probably going to ask questions. Those are the people that I'm putting it out there for. But I also understand with marketing, right? It is a certain look that people look for when they are looking for a trainer. You know what I'm saying? So it's just balancing that out.
Yeah, I see someone said, let's get the likes up. And let me give a quick shout out to somebody that donated some money. I can't find his thing now, but anyway, thank you for the donation.
Oh yeah,
I don't
that's
I don't
always
like
good.
it. I don't like it when I can't find it and give a appreciation. I put him up on the banner. So, but again, thank you for that. But when it comes to, there's one person that's been making some videos that's thinks that he knows my opinions on a lot of stuff. I'm not going to mention his name, but the truth of the matter is, I don't have a problem with somebody giving a critique or whatever. But what I don't want him to do is speak for me. Here
Right.
it is. Thank you to Dickie Foster. I appreciate that. What I don't want somebody to do is speak for me. If they do want to speak for me, please do so accurately. Don't misrepresent what I believe.
Right.
They don't know necessarily everything that's gone through my mind or through my philosophy. But one of the things that I would say that separates me from some other trainers is I'm a breeder first. I mean, I
Yeah.
studied a lot of the training so I could do my evaluations that I need to do. But I have 30 dogs, and I don't need 30 dogs here that would kill somebody.
Yeah.
Because if you had 30 dogs that were super hot,
Yeah.
oh my
That's a
goodness, you
hard
talk
keep.
about, well, not only hard keep, that's also a huge liability.
Yeah.
A huge liability. When you have 2 or 3 dogs that are absolute man stopper beasts, the rest of them just need to be evaluated. Do they have the traits needed to
Right.
do it? And if they
Right.
have the traits, and once I know that they have the traits, I test, do they have the traits? We put some pressure on them, see how they respond to the pressure, and then are they healthy? And do they move well? Do they stable? Are they stable? Are they prey driven, confident, defense driven, fight driven, etc.? Once I know that they have the traits, I don't have to finish that dog because I'm a breeder first. I only need
Right.
two or three protection dogs is more than enough for anybody. I live in my training facility and my home is on the same property. So my dogs
That's the
are
life.
50 yards away from me right now, in a 5,000 square foot kennel. I got 5,000 square feet, 27 kennels total.
Man. That's I that's the life, man. It's funny because at one point I was living on a farm. Now I'm in the city with the goal to uh to transfer back to the farm life. But it's the process of finding a suitable property and all of that stuff, man. But that's the life, man. That's the life. I tell my wife all the time, I can't wait to get back to the point where I wake up and go outside, and that's my job, being outside. I don't have to go
Yep.
nowhere. I ain't got to work. I just want to go outside of my door and work. That's literally
Yeah.
all I want to do. And that's for me. I could do that for the rest of my life.
That's cool.
I don't do things that I have to retire from. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
made
not,
my
I
living as a
don't want to
teacher.
say that in a bad way, like it's a bad thing. It's just I enjoy waking up doing things that I love. That way, I don't
Absolutely.
really have to look forward to retiring from it.
Absolutely. I made my living in education. A lot of people think I was just a high school teacher. That is not true.
Yeah,
I busted my butt for a long time to finance the building and growth of this program by I taught high school, that's true, but I also taught college. I taught at the University of Illinois and also taught at Hines Community College. And I drove a bus. And so for a while, I had 3 jobs, being an educator, a bus driver, and a dog kennel. So, it's a lot of work. But when you get to a certain point, sometimes it can be overwhelming. Maybe it was easier when I was younger because I had more energy and less aches and pains and whatnot. And as I've gotten older, it takes its toll. We had a breeding that I wanted to do last year with a bitch named Elsa, and I didn't do that breeding because I had already, man, you got 30 dogs and you got like 6 breedings that you want to do this year, and then 4 of the females come and heat, or 5 of them come and heat at the same time. And I'm like, I don't want 5 litters at the same time. But then I've done it before where I don't breed some of them, and next thing you know, the ones that I did breed might not get pregnant. So because they don't get pregnant every time, you got to like hit it on the right day and stuff. And even then, it may not always work out. It could have been a false heat or whatnot. So this time I bred 4 of them, and I was like, man, I don't want to breed 5. So I didn't breed Elsa. Sure enough, all 4 of them that we bred got pregnant, and I'm just now kind of getting over that because that's a lot of work. And then we had this cold weather, and with this cold weather, I had puppies in the house, puppies screaming at night. Like, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, man. Trust me.
A lot of work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep. So, but
All right,
now we
man.
got to work so. But go ahead, let's bring the topic. You said you wanted.
Yeah.
I think you had said something about. It was about a defense topic. That's why we titled this "Let's Talk Defense."
Yeah.
And I said something about one of the things that people don't always understand is that defense work does not always mean defense drive. And I think you and I are on the same page on that, if I remember correctly.
100%. 100%. And that's, that has always, ever since I've come on the scene, so to speak, right? That has always been a misunderstanding because I'm learning that most trainers, it's hard for them to separate themselves from the dog, right? And what I mean by that is most trainers, everything is about the dog, everything, right? Most trainers I would even say, if I had to put a percentage on it, honestly speaking, about 20% is focused on the handler and the rest is focused on the dog with most trainers. Whereas for me, with what my teacher taught me, one doesn't exist without the other, right? The handler doesn't exist without the dog. The dog doesn't exist without the handler, and neither one of them exists without the trainer. So it's a triangle, right?
Right.
So for me, as much as I'm teaching the dog, I'm teaching the handler just as much, right? So for an example, and I don't want to make this seem like I have anything against the back tie, because I don't, because I understand the application of the back tie, but I do believe that the back tie is used way too much, in my opinion, right? And the reason why I say that is because, one, the handler is not holding the dog enough, right? And then, you look at a lot of videos and I see a lot of dogs that are way more advanced that shouldn't be on the back tie. They should be in the handler's hand, right? The handler to feel that raw power, just like driving a car, right? I don't see handlers handling their dog in a tactical manner. I'm not just talking about restrain and release like you see on most videos, right? I'm talking about actually handling the dog.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, using the dog in a tactical manner, right? As a space keeper, right? Keeping the bad person away from you, right? In a lot of videos, I see they use the dog as a projectile missile, right? Especially in a lot of 2-man scenarios or 3-man scenarios. They use the dog as a projectile missile for the person that's farthest away from the handler. And then the people that are closest to the handler are the ones that come in when the dog is the furthest away. and start beating
Say
up.
that. Say that again. Say that again. I read something there, and I missed you. You said the people that are closest. What?
Yeah, so in a lot of scenarios, specifically two-man scenarios, right? The dog is being used as a projectile missile. So basically they're releasing the dog to go, you know, engage the person 50, 60, 100 yards away from the handler. And
Yep.
then the other person that's the other assailant, right, or the other bad guy comes in and starts beating up on the handler while the dog is
Right.
all the way down the field, and then they have
Right.
to call the dog back to them to engage the person that's already stabbed them, beat them up, hit them in the back of the head with the gun or whatever they wanted to do. Right now, this is when I talk about defense. Most of the time, these are the kind of scenarios that I'm talking about, to where that's not defense. Right? I'm not talking about the mindset of the dog. I'm talking about how you're tactically using the dog. Because in a real life scenario, you're probably dead.
Right.
By the time the dog gets back to you, the person has already done what they wanted to do. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a great show of obedience. The fact that you can call your dog out of that bite from that far away to come back to help you. Right? But tactically speaking and practically speaking, it's the dumbest thing to show.
Yeah.
If you're going to say that's protection.
And not only that, but a lot of it then also has to deal with the training methodology that was done to get that dog to that level, and also the type of breed and dog that you're looking at, and the reason and the drives that are predominantly displayed in that dog, and how quick it is about the bite versus the fight. And what I mean by that is, the one time that I did compete in a canine protection sport was actually in canine protections, or canine pro sports, was the name of it. And that's Butch Capel's organization. And when I went there, we just had a dog that we had taught some basics: sit, down, heel, stay, calm, engage, and disengage. And our engage command was guard, and our off command I use off. And I've always felt like guard is the right command, because it's a defensive command. If there's a witness that sees me attack and they say, well, what did he say? Did he say sick him? Did he say bite him? Did he say get him? I don't want to use those words. I wanted to use something that, from me communicating to the dog standpoint, I wanted something that had a guttural sound and was clear and easy for the dog to distinguish from background sound. So I chose guard because it has a very distinctive sound. The other thing is, from the human side, observers know that guard is a defensive word. It's not an offensive word. So that's why I chose that word. Now, for the off command, I never have really come across the perfect command, because to me, off sounds a lot like ow. Ah! I don't want my dog to out just because the guy's screaming. Now, we've never had that happen, but it was just something that I always worried about. Out, off, they sound too much like ow. I chose out, or excuse me, I chose off instead of out, because out sounds more like ow than off does. But I don't have the perfect command for that, except for maybe here. That might be the best command, which means get back to my side.
It's funny you say that, because here is a good one. But what I'm actually starting to implement is just the dog's name. It's just literally calling the dog's name to come back to me. So if he's engaged in a bite, if it's my boy Jaja, he's a little older. So I'm starting with younger dogs now, because, it's harder to teach a dog. It's harder to unlearn, to reteach something, than it is just to teach it from the beginning. Right. So, my older protection dog, I'm just kind of letting him be whatever he is already is. But my younger dogs, my new off command is literally, hey, whatever your name is, come. You know what I'm saying? And that is my off command.
I hope you always remember the dog's name if you got a bunch of them.
That's the tricky part.
You'll be saying the wrong name. I'm kidding. Of course, we all know our dogs' names, but that's just a joke. Got to say, in the heat of the moment, I'm gonna try to. I think I might switch to here. I've been using off for a long time, but I might switch to here. But anyway, we had a question for you here from someone. Brandon said, or no, Jaguar. This is a friend of mine. He
Mhm. Yeah, I'm familiar with
deleted.
him. Yep.
Yeah, he said, Brandon, what are some of your fundamental training? Excuse me. What are some of your foundational training fundamentals you learned from Gypsy that has helped you, and what are some of the things that you disagreed with or didn't add to your arsenal from Gypsy?
So okay, so keep it up there just so I can answer it,
Bit by
in
bit, sure.
yeah. So foundational training. So the defensive protocol, right? Alarm, challenge, threat, display, engage. That is literally when I set up my programs, I follow that protocol, right? Because the truth of the matter is, right? It, you get a lot of guys that are what I call detractors, right? When I talk about all defense all the time. Again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When I say all defense all the time, you know, most guys take that to the extreme and think that I'm talking about an extremely defensive minded dog. And that's not what
Yep.
I'm talking about at all, right? What I'm talking about is obviously there's levels of the dog being a defense. I prefer a higher percentage defense dog than I do a prey driven dog because from my standpoint, and maybe you'll agree with this, the higher prey driven dogs are not the dogs that are typically the best pet dogs, right? So for me, because I kind of operate under the pet protector, which is what Gypsy will call him, right? He talked a lot about the church lady, right? And the church lady don't have Malinois. They don't really have the pit bulls that we see in the sport world, right? They don't even have American Sentinel canines, right? Those dogs are specialty dogs that are bred specifically for the task. Most people just got a dog, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's a particular breed, it's still just a dog because it wasn't bred with the characteristics, right? Most of the time that even if it's a Rottweiler or a Corso, that those dogs were traditionally bred for, right?
Real
So
quickly,
because
I do like a high prey driven dog, but I want some
yeah.
defense. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's all preference. I'm just saying for the average everyday person, a high prey driven dog is
It can
probably
be too
not the
much.
best dog.
It
Oh
can
yeah,
be
for
too
sure.
much, but the reason why I like it is because a lot of times a high prey driven dog is a higher energy dog, and I like a
Yeah,
dog that can go jogging, cycling.
yeah,
If I'm
yeah,
cycling or hiking or camping, I just don't want
yeah,
to. When I was younger, maybe the older I get, the less I might need it. But when I was younger,
yeah,
I remember I got tired of waiting dogs at the shade tree because
yeah, yeah,
I'd be hiking or or climbing and whatnot. Because I did a lot of kayaking and hiking when I was younger,
mm,
and I'd be walking a dog, and I'd have to stop at the shade tree or the creek to let them cool
yeah.
off because these were the Akitas that I had, and
Okay.
I didn't like that. I wanted a dog that I mean,
Yeah,
this is supposed to be a canine, right?
yeah,
Domestic version of the wolf. The wolf can go like 100 miles in a day. This dog's done in 10 miles, So I didn't like
yeah.
that. I wanted an animal that could work all day. But that was one of the things that I wanted out of my dogs. But I didn't mean to steal your thunder there. Go ahead and finish this question.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And most of us in the dog world can handle a higher energy dog, right? But again, for the most part, anytime I'm speaking, unless I say this is what I like, I'm looking from the lens of the everyday person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of the people that come to me, even if they got a Presser or they got a Rottweiler or they got a Corso or a Doberman, we all know most of the dogs that are purebred are not, they don't have the characteristics of what those dogs used to have 20 or 30 years ago. Most of these dogs are just pets that look like Rottweilers and look like Corsos, right? So
Yep.
to me, they're just dogs. So because I understand that about most dogs, that's the lens that I approach it from. I don't approach it from the dog that I would like to have, right? I approach it
Right.
from the lens of the dog that most people have. So when
Sure.
we talk about the pet protector, right? One of the things that Gypsy used to always say was the dog is a pet first. We teach it how to be a protector. But most of the time, 99.9%, and probably for most dogs, 100% of the time, the dog is a pet first. It's very rare that most of these dogs that we train are going to actually be in a live situation. The
Yeah,
most that
less than 1% of the time.
less than 1%. You know, the most that these
Really less than like 0.1%. Because you
right,
think about all the minutes that you have every week and how many times that you have to. I mean, it's true that a dog can bark at a window and you didn't even know that they scared somebody away. That's true if you live in a city,
right,
especially. I live in a rural area. My dogs, they alarm every time somebody drives up, right?
mhm,
Because we're in a rural area. So if you drive up, trust me, I know.
yeah,
And that might be a bad guy that turned around and drove off, or it could have just been
yeah,
somebody wanting to just turn around. I don't know if they were protected or not. I mean,
yeah,
they're protected, but I don't know if it was needed at that particular time. It could have just been the mailman, or it could have been a criminal that said, "Nope, I'm going somewhere else." I don't know. But there's times that they work and we don't even know it. But go ahead. But still,
yeah.
1% of the time or less.
Oh yeah, for sure. So for me, man, I approach it from a lens of I don't necessarily have to have a dog that's bred for it because I've been taught how to teach dogs that probably wasn't, as a matter of fact, I know wasn't bred for it, right? But because I understand that every dog has fight or flight, right? Every mammal on earth, every animal on earth, really, but every mammal specifically has fight or flight. So
There's one
because I,
more thing.
yep,
One
go
more
ahead.
thing. It's really there's three F's: fight,
Yep.
flight, and freeze.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The possum. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So, because I understand that every mammal has that, right? The way I've been taught, I utilize that. I utilize that drive, right?
Right.
Now,
Which really,
obviously,
that's where I was talking about with ethology, where
yeah,
we can categorize it as drive, but
yeah,
sometimes it's pleasant and unpleasant.
yeah,
Just
yep,
just with ethology, does the dog find it pleasant or does the dog find
yep,
it unpleasant? And sometimes they confront what's unpleasant because, like with gypsy style of training, there would have been a time that if the dog was trying, and I'm not trying to
mhm,
uh, condemn anything here. I'm just saying there's a time, especially in the older methods of training, that if you had a dog that maybe wasn't the best protection dog, but you had to use what the church lady brought,
yep,
then you might have put that dog on a short lead and you might have put some pressure on it. Flight was denied because of the lead. And then the dog's like, okay, now what am I going to do? Freeze?
yep,
Well, that doesn't work because then I get corrected again by the
yep,
agitator. And then so the dog finally does resort to fight response. And then Gypsy, of course, rewards that by leaving. And the
yep,
dog can learn that, hey, the pleasant response is to fight it
mhm,
because freeze doesn't work and I can't flight.
yep.
But anyway, go ahead.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, you got the basic idea of it, right? But where a lot of people get in trouble, right, because they really don't one know how to read a dog, right?
Yep.
Two, they're trying to put too much. They're trying to put too much. Uh, what do you call it? Lighter fluid on the fire too fast, right?
Yep. Little
Which
patience.
they lack the patience, right? Because most trainers, right, are just trying to get the dog to bite. They're not trying to teach the dog protection. They're just trying to get the dog to bite. And this is where defense gets a bad name because you get a lot of people, right, applying defense the wrong way. They're putting too much pressure on the dog. They shut a dog down and then they say, oh, that defense don't work. No, that trainer doesn't work because that trainer lacked the ability to use what Gypsy would always say, his trainer brain and not his agitator brain, right?
Right.
Most people are just agitators. Most people are not trainers. And I don't say
Depends
that
on
in a disrespectful
I,
way.
I got to ask you to clarify something there. When you say most people, I don't think most people are agitators. Now, maybe in the protection world, but when I
Yeah,
see trainers in the sport world, a lot of those people don't know how to agitate at all.
yeah, they're just decoys.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it depends. There's a difference between a decoy, an agitator, and a trainer, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Or a
a
helper.
trainer will decoy and agitate, right? But a
Yep.
decoy may not be a trainer, and he may not be an agitator. An
Right.
agitator may not be a decoy or a trainer, right?
Right.
But an agitator could be a decoy as well, right? So
Right.
it
Right.
can
There's
intermediate.
I know some people that were good at catching dogs, but
Yeah,
I didn't want them to train my dog.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
they
So
might see a big 110-pound dog that's only 10 months old and they forget he's only 10 months old. I mean, his
yeah,
testosterone ain't even hit in yet.
yep, absolutely.
So,
And that's it's funny because I was doing my reaction videos, and one guy got his panties in a bunch because I reacted to one of his videos, and
I'm gonna stay out of this one.
yeah, yeah,
Go ahead. I don't like to be offensive. I don't like to do reaction videos, but go ahead.
here's the thing, man. Um, it took me a long time to actually do it because I knew the backlash that I would get for doing it, right? So I'm very aware of the repercussions of doing the reaction videos, right? But the thing I said was my goal, and I say this in every video, and even though I say it, it still doesn't register in people's brain, right? Is never anything personal, right? Because some of these people I don't even know. I'm just reacting to what I see on the video, right?
Understandable. Understandable.
So
But I got to ask you, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I hope you don't mind.
yeah, for sure.
When we've had somebody review our videos, sometimes they see their objective instead of
Mhm.
my objective. And a video doesn't always, I mean, I don't know what this person's objective was in the video that you evaluated. I don't know what his objective was. But I can tell you if I'm doing training with a 12-week-old puppy on a rag,
Mhm.
don't do a reaction video on that and tell your viewer that I'm protection training, because I'm not. I'm not
Yeah,
protection training a 12-week-old puppy biting a rag. That's not protection training. And for somebody to go out and say Lee doesn't know how to protection train because he's doing bite work, bite on a
mhm,
12. Okay, that I'm not doing protection training at all. I'm doing prey drive assessment. I'm assessing this dog's prey drive. I'm assessing his commitment. I'm assessing his bite. I'm assessing his nerves and things
for
like
sure.
that. And some people say if you put your hand over their eyes, you could stab a dog. Well, there's also another aspect to that, and that's the breeding aspect. I want to know how's in it. If I'm training a protection dog, I might
Mhm.
not put my hand over his eyes. But if I'm doing a breeding evaluation and I want to know the dog's nerves and how does it react to pressure, then I might put my hand over his eyes. All right.
Gotcha.
That's not the same thing as a decoy praising the dog. If a decoy is praising the my decoys should never, or agitators should never, ever, ever praise my dog. I'm the
Right,
only one that praises my dog.
right,
But I can still have a decoy cover their eyes, and somebody that doesn't know what they're doing might think they're petting the dog. They are
yeah,
not petting the dog.
right,
I've asked them, let's see how the dog responds when you have removed one of his primary senses. You've
mhm,
taken away his ability to see. I want to know, does that make my dog nervous and look for the flight? And if it looks
absolutely,
for the flight, now I have to question that dog's commitment to combat. And I like a dog that is high prey drive and high fight driven, but enough defense to be reliable and not to be baited by some sort of bait.
yeah,
I don't want them giving them a spoonful of peanut butter and the
yeah,
dog gets not only food but also tactile stimulation, because a food is different than, I mean, peanut butter is going to be more challenging to some dogs than like a piece of hamburger meat, because if they eat a piece of hamburger meat, they can eat it and swallow it real quick if they
real quick,
chose to eat it, right?
yeah,
But peanut butter, not only does it have a flavor and a taste, it's also like it's distracting. It has another element to it, and so this is something that, if you're gonna do a evaluation on someone else's work, you need to. It's kind of like when people evaluate the Bible. They see something in the Bible and they say, "Look at what the Bible said," and I'm like, "Well, did you actually, before you assess what's written in the Bible, did you ask who the author was?" Who the intended reader was, because the intended reader, while it's okay for us to read it, we have to look at what was the message they were saying to the person they were writing to. and then also what was the time period and what was going on. But a lot of people don't like to look at that. And I know that we're not trying to make a religious topic here, but my point is, before I assess somebody else's message or training, I need to ask, what are they trying to do? What is the owner of the dog trying to accomplish? And
Right.
there's a difference between a breeding evaluation, a protection evaluation, a canine sport evaluation. And I forgot to say, when I went to that Canine Pro Sports event, we ended up taking first place. But we were talking about having two agitators at the same time. I taught my dog sit down, heel, stay, come, engage, disengage. That's all my dog basically knew. We took first place in our class, but I saw another class that was for police class where they did dual attack. And in the dual attack, he did exactly what you were talking about. He sent his dog down to engage somebody, and then he called the dog back. Well, when the dog was called back, it didn't bite the decoy. It bit the man. It bit the owner, because the dog, it bit the owner in the thigh. And and the dog was so targeted on the bite, it didn't recognize owner versus attacker. And this is a problem that we see in a lot of police dogs too. They oftentimes will bite a fellow officer, and that's because they have been conditioned to the bite rather than the bond. The bond is, if you're going to have a protection dog, you got to start with the bond, like you said, the pet first.
Yep, absolutely.
The relationship.
There's a difference between, and this is why, I talk often about how pit bulls, for the most part, and like we spoke earlier.
No, you're good. Go ahead and say what you got to say. If I disagree, I'll speak up. You know that.
Yeah,
I'm the type of person, I can disagree with you and still respect you, bro.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you pretty much said it earlier. Dogs like pit bulls, Malinois, which are the dogs that you see the most in the sport world, right? Generally speaking, you're obviously going to have exceptions to the rule because nothing is absolute, right? But generally speaking, those dogs are not natural protection dogs. What they are natural biting dogs, right? There's a difference.
And I think the Malinois is more a condition to the bite than the pit bull, because the pit bull does. I'm not going to say that the pit bull doesn't enjoy a bite, because I believe some of them certainly do. But the pit bull actually has an objective. And I'm not so sure. I've only worked with a few Malinois. And, I've been training dogs for 25 years, and we've trained all different types of breeds, hundreds of dogs. But as far as Malinois go, I've only worked a few. When I say a few, probably 20, because realistically over 25 years.
That's relatively small.
That's not that many when it comes to Malinois. And I can say, I don't know if the objective is the event or if it's just having something in their mouth. It's with a pit bull, there's really an objective besides having something in the mouth. Malinois are kind of like clacky mouths, where they want something in that mouth. But I would what is it called when you would pass that answer to somebody that's more experienced, specifically with Malinois? We've trained Malinois, Shepherds, Rottweilers, Doberman Pinschers, a bunch of, obviously, pit bulls, a ton of Mastiffs, a ton of American Sentinels, and a lot of pit bulls. To me, some people have asked, why have I not put herder? I get asked all the time, when are you going to put a German Shepherd? When are you going to put a Malinois? When are you going to put a Dutch Shepherd in your program? I'm not gonna. Here's why I'm not gonna.
Into the American Sentinel Canine?
Yeah, a lot of people want me to do it because the bull herder is real popular. I have no desire to do it. Why? The herder, in my opinion, is the ace of the class when it comes to cerebral activity. If you want to teach a dog a ton of things, I think the herders really excel at that. I don't need an Albert Einstein. I need sit down, heel, stay, come, engage, and disengage. Now, which one of these is the limiting factor? Sit is not hard. You can teach any dog to sit, right? Down is not hard. You can teach any dog to down. Stay is not hard. You can teach any dog to stay. Heel is not hard. Come is not hard. Engage. This is one that when it really hits the fan, a lot of dogs don't want to genetically engage. A lot of dogs are going to be like, you can condition me to hit, because I've learned that flight doesn't work. I've learned that freeze doesn't work. So you can condition me to hit, But those dogs, if they don't have that genetic predisposition to enjoy combat, when they get hit hard, hit back,
Oh yeah.
they're gonna resort back to flight, and that's why the fight aspect of a gladiator is the limiting factor. So I'm not going to sacrifice the combative nature of the dog. I want a true canine gladiator. So with that aspect, we chose working mastiffs and working bred American Pit Bull Terriers. But when we looked at both of those breeds, I wanted a super high degree of stability, and I also wanted a lot of malleability. You know, I wanted the dog to be very biddable, easy to train, and this is why I like the Sorrells dogs so much, because I mean I've done some Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone stuff, and when it comes to work, they'll work just like anything, but they're just not as intelligent. The Sorrells dogs are more intelligent, but they're just as much a gladiator as the Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone stuff. So if the Sorrells is, I don't have to sacrifice any gladiator to get intelligence with the Sorrells line, and that's why I like the Sorrells line so much. And those dogs, I'm not trying to make a commercial here. The Sorrells dogs, though, they hold a lot of records in a lot of events. They're really great all around dogs, and you know, I hope that someday you can get to see one that's bred right, because a well-bred Sorrells pit bull is able to, one of the first Schutzhund titled dogs ever in the world, pit bull titled dogs ever in the world, was a Sorrells dog. Yeah, they're really good. They're really good at what they do. But anyway, again.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, like I said, man, you know, nothing is absolute. I know that there's pit bulls out there that are some good ass dogs, right? But you know, again, when I speak, and you know, it's social media, a lot of the time you're trying to do a few things, right? You're trying to get the point across. You're trying to be entertaining, right?
Right. Yeah, that's my fault. I'm not very entertaining.
Well, you know,
I need a little bit more of that in my channel.
You know, and you're trying to disseminate whatever your narrative is, right? So it's three things that you're trying to do in a short period of time, because we all know the vast majority of people don't read, right? And most people lack the ability to comprehend objectively, right? You know, a lot of the time when you post stuff, people are so goddamn sensitive nowadays, man. It's hard to even just have a conversation without people interjecting themselves in the conversation, right? So, you know,
and I did that to you. You were talking about describing the person that you did a review on, and I intervened and said, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, because I think it's important that when we do a review that we do understand what is their objective. But go ahead, and let's not forget the Jaguar's question.
Yeah, so let me get back to the question, because I know we don't got all the way off topic, right? So I think I answered the first part, you know, which is the defensive protocol: alarm, challenge, threat, display, engage, right? So anytime that I assess or do an evaluation on the dog, I am evaluating what levels of each of those things the dog has, right? How much is the dog willing to alarm that there's a threat, right? How much is the dog willing to challenge, right? Where's the dog at on the threat display? And then ultimately, obviously, which is the most important, is the engagement, right? Is that dog willing to engage, and what level of engagement? Because like you said, every dog has a threshold, right? But this is another misconception that most people miss when I have this conversation, right? Because they try to make it seem like I'm saying pet dogs are, I can take they try to make it seem like I'm trying to sell water to a well, right? So anytime I have a conversation about doing protection with a person that just has a regular everyday pet dog, right? When I assess that dog, I tell the owner exactly what I see, right? I don't try to sell them anything more than what I think they have, right? Now, some dogs may give you a little bit more, right? Some dogs may give you a little bit less. My goal is to tell the owner exactly what they have. And the easiest way I can do that is a number system, right? So if I assess a dog and I say, hey, look, I know you say you want to do protection, right? Now we can do protection, but I want to show you an example of what I believe a great protection dog is, right? And I may show him my dog, I may show him a dog I train or whatever it is, right? This is a great example of a protection dog. Now, I'm going to be honest. Your dog is not close to that dog. But what we can do is make your dog the best dog that it can be, right?
Right. At least get a huff and puff and bluff.
Exactly. And truth be told, that's 100% more than what they had before, right? So even if the dog is only a 4 out of a 10, meaning that it's only going to give you a quick 2-second hold on the bite and it's going to let go, right? Let's say we can't get that dog to do no more than that. Guess what that's going to do for 99.9% of people? That's going to save their life.
Right. You talked about
that person that didn't have that level.
Again, you cut out. I didn't hear you. You cut out there. What'd you say?
I said I just helped that person get a level of protection that they didn't have before.
Sure. You had mentioned Gypsy's steps of the defensive protocol. We have something similar to that. I put it on the screen here. I have alarm, warning, engagement, out, and hold and guard. What were your steps that you had?
Alarm, challenge, threat display, engage.
All right. So we I don't know if you knew this or not, but probably, let me think about the timeline, man. I never met Gypsy, but I probably was speaking to him, I'm going to say 20 years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, believe it or not, I don't know if you know Gail Raponi or not from Tough Enough Kennels.
I've heard that kennel, but I don't know the name.
Yeah, he has an organization called the Canine Civil Defense League or something along those lines. Him and Gypsy were good friends for many, many years. And of all the people that I know that have worked with Gypsy a lot, I would say Gail Raponi is one of the top. This was a long time ago, though, like 20 years ago, right? So I don't know if they maintained relationships all the way up till his passing or not, but the Canine Civil Defense League and the Personal Protection Dog Association, the PPDA, I did know that they had the defense protocol, and through my conversation, this is what I came up with. But you said the first step you had was alarm, so we're in agreement there. I have alarm as well. And then your second stage was challenge.
Challenge, yep.
Yep, and we have warning. When time permits, it's best to warn the criminal to stop, which that's like a vocalization, which is, but here, this is just not a verbal warning. This could be a visual as well, like when he sees them teeth, or that may be what you call threat display. So we've kind of combined challenge and threat display together with our warning. Then you had you had alarm, challenge, threat display, and then engagement.
Engage, yep.
Yeah, we have engagement with that. And then after that, I added 2 more. And so I've kind of modified it. And obviously, once you stop the threat, I want to be able to out. So we added that. That should be part of your next level. And then after you out, if you're dealing with a criminal, it depends on kind of where you are. If you're in the city and the criminal runs away, the criminal runs away. But if I'm able to hold and guard, which means I'm going to keep that person in a bark and hold, he's in a corner. I'll show you a picture I have. I don't know if I can find it because the screen share only allows me to share what's online. I can't share something on my picture. But we have a picture where I saw somebody say, I think it was Gypsy actually, that said hands up is a universal surrender.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually disagree with that. And I'm going to say that because Jaguar said that what did we learn and what did we discard? I actually disagree with hands up because I know a lot of people will come in like, hey, they'll come in aggressive. So I can't say it's a universal threat display or surrender, but it is definitely a surrender most of the time. So I guess universally, if you surrender, you put your hands up, but just because your hands up doesn't mean you do surrender. If you surrender, your hands are up, but you could also be threatening with your hands up. So I also believe in a hold and guard. Like if I can keep that criminal, let's say it's a rapist or somebody that came and tried to attack my wife or something like that. I don't want this guy to get away and rape somebody else. Now it's true that I'm not the police. It's true that it's not my job to apprehend and contain and whatnot. But if I can contain him and I've stopped the threat and he's in the corner and he doesn't want to get a bit again, I might be like, or call the, if somebody tried to rob me, I'm going to try to get him arrested. You know, especially in my house. If he's in my house, somebody might say, well, let him leave. Why would I let him leave? He might get away and I might never, ever, he might rob me again next week, or somebody I love down the street, part of my community. I think the community has a duty to get the criminals off the street. So if I can, now I'm not still biting him and I'm not pursuing a criminal. I'm saying if I have him trapped, and I wish I could find this picture that I want. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing the screen so I can see if I can find that picture.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this in response to that. And this is a part of the, you know, all defense all the time moniker, you know, that I operate under, that originated with Gypsy, right?
Yep.
The number one thing that I am looking to do is to preserve human life, right? That is the number one thing.
Especially you and your loved ones.
Exactly, right? So for me, right, and I understand the sentiment of you don't want the bad guy to get away, right? But for me,
yes and no. It depends. If
it depends.
I'm talking about if a crime has already occurred, then if I can contain him, that's cool. Here's the picture I was looking for. I'm going to go ahead and share screen again, but go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So for me, you know, obviously, again, nothing is absolute, right? But for the most part, the way I look at it is there's things that I can do to help the police in their pursuit of the bad guy, right? Now, what do I mean by that, right? And I'm kind of giving more than I would normally give online because, you know, some things are meant to be paid for, right? So, but it's okay because I want people to understand what I'm talking about and get a better understanding of what all defense all the time means. Because again, anytime I'm thinking about personal protection, I don't put me in the scenario. I put my wife in the scenario. I put my grandmother, my mother, right? Typically women, right? Because for me, I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually don't really like working with men when it comes to protection, right? And the reason why is because the vast majority of men, they don't really care about protection. They just want their dog to bite, right? The vast majority of men, they just want their dog to bite. They just want to see an aggressive dog. They just want to do bite work. I'm not into doing bite work. I do protection work. So I know for me, when a woman comes to me and says, you know, I was thinking about getting a protection dog, I know it's because it's not of her ego. It's because she truly feels like she needs something to protect her. So she's going to be willing to listen. There's not going to be any ego there, right? There's not going to be a mindset there of when my dog, man, we done been training for 2 weeks and my dog ain't bite yet, right? I don't like hearing shit like that. Because for me, the biting part is like the easiest part. But let me get back to the point that I was making, right? So for me, because anytime I think about protection, I'm plugging my wife into that scenario. I personally don't want my wife sitting there with the person that just tried to hurt them. I would rather my wife, right, while my dog is engaged, right, meaning my dog is biting that person, or if that person is actively trying to get to my wife, but my wife is handling the leash. The dog is at the end of that leash, keeping that person away from my wife, right? She's not dropping the leash and the dog is going to chase him. She's actively handling that leash in a tactical manner, keeping the person 6 to 10 feet away from her, right? And while she's doing that with one hand, she's taking her phone out and video recording. Right? She's doing something that she can hand over to the police, right? She's taking a picture of the license plate. These are tactical things that I teach, right? That will help the police after the fact, right?
Right.
Now, there's a proponent of that where it's like, okay,
It's
like you
good as
said,
long as it doesn't come at the expense of safety.
right. You see what I'm saying? But for the most part, that's what I'm thinking about. Because if I have a dog, then the person should never really have the opportunity to cause any harm. For the most part, right? Because the first thing that the dog should do is keep space between you and the bad guy.
Right. Right. And
So,
so I popped this picture back up, and I'm gonna
yeah,
keep it brief because I want to get rid of this screen. But
for
here we
sure.
have a guy. This guy here. I don't know if you know who he is or not.
I
Wade
can't really
Ford.
see his face.
But you can't. Oh yeah, this guy is was a great trainer. I don't know if he's still active. He moved to Houston. He was a great trainer. I think he
Okay.
actually came from the Chicago area, so he may have known Gypsy. But I
Okay.
trained with him for several years. Really good trainer. Uh, Here we have a bite with the dog. Here we have, I guess you could say this is a threat display. Here we have the dog that's staying engaged and engaged again, being attacked. And now the sleeve is on the ground, so the dog has re-engaged the man. He's not equipment fixated, and then
Mhm.
we're confident right in his face, but we're not causing excessive harm. And then the man is now trapped, like if he was in your house. This is when I would call the police and say, "Hey, we got this guy that broke into our house." Now, I would not recommend this if it's going to come at the expense of safety. If I had my wife in this situation instead of me, I would tell her to leave or let the guy run away.
Yeah.
If it was my daughter, let the guy run away. Even my son, even though he's a male, I would probably tell him let the guy run away. But
Right.
when you get to a certain age and fatherhood sets in,
Yeah.
being a good citizen, and I know I've got a criminal, and I feel like I got control. And I don't know you that well, Brandon. I just have seen a few of your things. Sometimes the soldier comes out in us. Now, I'm not
No,
trying to catch the criminal that has left that I don't know about, but I have, unfortunately, in my life, seen it where it was none of my business. A guy go after a woman, and just my instincts was to intervene. Now, I
Mhm.
don't know what happened, and maybe she asked for it, but you're not going to do this in public with me.
Right.
I'm not, you know, just what I mean by that, by maybe she asked for it, maybe like, let's say, for example, I've heard some people say, never ever, uh, I'm just going to say it. I don't like to say it because it could be taken out of context. Somebody might say, never, ever, ever hit a woman. Well, let's say a woman had a knife to a child's neck and was
Mhm.
going to cut him. Obviously, in that situation, somebody might shoot that woman because they want to save the child, especially if it's your child. Well, a bullet hits a lot harder than a hand. So my point on
Right.
that is not that these kind of phrases um, don't. I don't believe in, like some people say 1,000%, 110. I don't do that. I never say 1,000%. I never say 110% unless we're talking about economic growth or some sort of growth. Because in growth, you can go above 100%. But when it comes to agreement, there's nothing more than 100%. 100% is all that you can agree. So I'm not the type of person that says I agree 100. I agree 200%. I agree 1,000. I don't say that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
My point on that is absolutes, and so rules. Um, I almost never have an absolute because
Mhm.
I can think of extenuating circumstances. I guarantee you, if some crackhead female had a knife against my kid's neck, I'm going to do what I can to protect my kid. And I don't really care what happens if it's a male or a female. It doesn't matter. That's my kid, and you're a crackhead. Uh,
For sure.
so, um, so these type of things that come into play, where as a protector, we have a duty. Now, obviously, I'm not going to. I don't. Let me quantify it. I don't believe in excess force, right?
Mhm.
I'm just saying that's my kid, and you could kill my kid if I don't intervene. So I'm not
Right.
going to intervene halfway where you can still kill my kid. I'm going to use whatever level of minimal force is necessary to make sure you don't kill my kid. But it
Right.
has to be enough to make sure you don't kill my kid. And what happens to you beyond that is not my primary concern. I would like to use minimal force, but my primary concern is to protect my kid.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's that's a great point because that's another misnomer, right? That gets brought up. When I'm talking about defense, like Like, I don't give a shit about what happens to the bad guy, right? Like, okay, perfect example, right? One of the things that's talked about when it comes to dogs switching, right? Switch biting, right? Because most people they practice the dog one bite and they hold on to that bite. So one of the things that often gets brought up when I talk about a dog countering, right?
Yeah,
Which for me,
transfer.
transfer biting, right? One of the things that gets brought up with which boggles my mind is where in court they're going to see that the dog bit the guy multiple times and that's going to get you in trouble. No, it's not. The court doesn't care, right? And I'm saying this from experience from a dog that I trained, right, or helped train. I can't say I 100% trained it because I helped Gypsy train the dog, but the lady actually had a live situation where she had to go to court because her dog protected her in a situation where a guy tried to run into her house behind her, right? The dog came, the dog was in the house. So as the guy was coming through the door, the dog attacked him. The dog bit that guy so many times, and it wasn't in one spot. The judge never asked one time, why did your dog bite this guy so many times? Not once. You know what the judge had her do? All
What's
the
that?
judge wanted to see was if she had control over her dog. So she literally had to bring a decoy to court, activate the dog, and then the most important thing the judge wanted to see was could she call that dog out of a bite?
Right.
That's all the judge wanted to see. He didn't care nothing about how many bite marks the guy had on him. Didn't care. Wasn't even a thought. All the judge wanted to know was, okay, you told the dog to bite or the dog bit this person. Is this dog a professionally trained protection dog? Can you call this dog out of the bite? That's all the judge cared about. So when people say, "Oh, you're training a liability because in the court the judge is gonna, the judge is gonna, ask about all these questions why the person got so many bite marks." No, that has nothing to do with the law.
Yeah.
That whole bite and hold thing, that's more of a police thing than it is a civilian thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'm going to show you a short video clip that I'm going to have to put it in bits and pieces, so it's not a an infringement. It'll be
yeah. Hey, real quick, I want to address something in the comments though.
Yeah,
Dog,
go ahead and finish this. Did you anything that you disagreed with that you let me finish that up real quick. There's anything that Gypsy taught you that you disagreed with?
Oh, the only thing that I would say that I disagree with Gypsy, and it's not really a disagreement because it's more of a preference thing, is he didn't really believe in socializing dogs, meaning taking them out to public places and doing things like that. He didn't really believe in that. I believe that's a personal preference. That's not something that I necessarily live and die by. It depends on the dog. It depends on what the person wants for their dog. Me personally, I enjoy being able to take my dog out to Tractor Supply every so often. I don't allow people to pet my dog, but I do enjoy taking my dog to the beach, right? I enjoy taking my dogs and doing things like that, especially in the social media era, right? Because it helps with marketing, right? So, but for him, because he comes from that old school train of thought, right? He don't believe in dog parks. He don't believe in taking his dogs for walks in public places. Like that's just not what he believes in. So that's the only thing that, I would say I kind of disagree with. But again, it's not really something to disagree with because that was his personal preference.
Yeah, right. And I would disagree with that too, because a lot of women, if they're jogging, or maybe even me, I like to go hiking or walking. Oh, well, if your dog is going to be nervous or when a police car drives by, an ambulance drives by, a fire truck drives by, somebody toots their horn, this is not necessarily socialization with people, but it's environmental exposure.
Right. Yeah.
And part of the environment when you live in a society is other people. So I
Mhm.
don't let other people play with my dogs, but I do want my dogs, with one exception. I do let my son has our house dog is my son's dog, and so
Mhm.
that dog meets a lot of people. And my house dog is cool with my neighbors, but that
Okay.
doesn't mean he's cool with strangers. He's just cool
Right.
with my neighbors and
Yeah.
my son's friends and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
but so I disagree with him too. You know, a dog needs to be exposed to the environment. If you can't take your dog with you, how's it going to protect you? And that's one of the
Well,
reasons why I don't like the real big dogs, is
yeah.
because it's kind of like a firearm to me. I'm not going to walk through town with an AR-15 or a double barrel shotgun. You know, I want a pocket pistol,
Yeah.
a 9 millimeter, compact 9 millimeter. And to me, that doesn't mean a subcompact. I want them big enough to do the job, but small enough to be mobile. I can
For
put them
sure.
in a car and carry them where I need to go.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason why Gypsy was like that is because he was real big on home protection, right?
Yeah.
That's really what he focused on, was home protection. He
I
wasn't
mean,
the
he lived in
guy.
Chicago. He lived in
Yeah,
Chicago.
exactly. So for him, he wasn't really concerned about the dog that you're carrying, out in public. And like we did things like that, right? Not to say that he didn't do it, but his main focus was home protection. That's really what he was passionate about. Because again, most people pets don't go out in public like that, if we're being honest. Most people keep their dogs in their house and in the backyard, if we're being honest, right?
Yeah,
So, that's what his focus was.
right. NWA says reaction videos people learn from. Trainers are going to talk crap behind the scenes anyway. And
Right.
there's some truth to that. And I don't have a problem if somebody wants to do a reaction video on one of my videos, but they need to call the video identifying what is my objective and what are we doing. And as long as they call the objective correctly, they can assess it. But if they're going to misrepresent my objective and say we're doing protection work with puppies and teaching the bite and
Yeah.
calling it protection work, that's not my objective. That's a different
Right.
thing. But go ahead.
No, I'm
You had a
looking at.
comment. You said you wanted to address. What was the
Yeah,
comment?
yeah, yeah. So Dogman Trey said, let me find it
Is this
first.
it right here?
No, not that one. I agree with that one. Let me find it. Transfer bite, which was from Dogman Trey as well. Transfer biting often equates to a dog that lacks commitment, not when you teach the dog to transfer bite. There's a difference. A dog that transfer bites, that does it naturally, I would agree with that for the most part. There's very few dogs that transfer bites that are actually committed to biting. But typically, a dog that naturally does it, which we would use the term pop off the bite, right? I would agree with that. But when you teach a dog to transfer biting, that has nothing to do with the lack of commitment. That is a tactical thing that you teach a dog, because in reality, nobody, I'll put it to you like this, right? I always like to equate it to, if two humans were fighting, right? It would
Is
be
this what you're
dumb.
talking about right here? Is this the
Yeah,
comment? I was looking. All right. So I'm going to ask you to start over because I was looking for the comment, or
yeah, yeah.
not completely start over, but you were
Yeah,
saying
no.
you disagree with this.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because it's too broad of a stroke, right? We're not compartmentalizing transfer biting, right? So the way he's saying it as if every dog that transfer bites shows a lack of commitment, and that's not true. It's only true for the dog that you did not teach to do that. The dog that you teach to transfer bite, right? It has nothing to do with the lack of commitment. You teach a dog to transfer bite because it's a tactical thing to allow the dog to strategically go in and out of a bite when necessary, right? And the
I
example
hear
I
you.
give, if the dog has taken a bite on the forearm, right, on the left forearm, let's say the person is right-handed that he's biting, but he's taking a bite on the left forearm, and then the person pulls out a knife and goes in to stab with the right arm, which is his strong arm. I personally would want to see my dog say, or will want my dog to have enough brains to say, oh, this person is coming in to hit me. Let me neutralize this arm because that's the arm that's presenting the most danger. Or another situation, if the dog is biting the left hand, right, and that person still has enough gumption to come in and try to stab me with the knife, I will want my dog to let go of the hand that's obviously not neutralizing anything, right? Because the threat is in the right hand. So I will want my dog to let go, or I would command my dog to let go of that bite and tell it to re-engage on the hand that presents the most danger. That is just, to me, right? This is, again, when we talk about all defense all the time, I'm not talking about the mentality of the dog. I'm talking about how you tactically use your dog, because it makes no sense. Again, I must reiterate this. When I'm talking protection, I'm never putting myself in the picture handling the dog. I'm always envisioning my wife handling the dog, right? So I will want my dog, right? Or I will want my wife to be able to tactically use that dog to make sure that it decreases the threat to her as much as possible. And to me, it's just stupid, in my opinion, right, to have a dog that is so focused on staying on one bite when it comes to a human. I know there's applications for it, right? So I'm trying to make sure that I don't condemn it, because I understand the use for it. But when it comes to fighting a human, a dog fighting a human, I don't think it's the smartest thing to have a dog so focused on one bite, it's oblivious to the danger that can be coming from the other hand, because that is a real thing.
I understand that. I'm gonna play devil's advocate though, because I totally get where you're coming from. But before I play devil's advocate, I'm gonna ask you a question, and that is, do you understand why Dogman Trey says what he says? For
I
humans,
understand. That's what I
for
said.
humans. I'm talking about for humans though, not for dogs. Do you know why he would say that?
I have an idea why he would say that. My idea is because he thinks it's a dog that just lacks confidence.
Right. And I'll tell you, in the sport world, they do not want to see a dog transfer to the
Oh,
bite
for
because
sure.
it's a sign that that dog is not committed to the engagement. He's thinking about possibly letting go, and maybe it's to transfer, but it very well could also be because he's looking for the back door.
Right.
And
Sure. I
in a
understand
hog
that.
in a hog catch situation, you definitely don't want a
Oh,
dog regripping,
I agree.
unless it's going to a superior grip. For example, let's say the initial strike that dog gets maybe the shoulder, and that's not the best place. So
Mhm.
then the dog might transfer to the ear or the neck or the muzzle, you know, um, something that's a more superior, or maybe even we had a dog was on the ear, and then when the hog it actually crossed a river, and the hunters couldn't get to it,
Mm.
and they had to it was an icy river that not ice but cold, really cold, so it felt like ice water, and the hunters
Mm.
had to drive around, and it took them an hour to get there.
Gee.
Well, when they got there, the hog, the dog was actually on the hog's neck, and it was
Mm.
on the ear for who knows how long. But when the hog
Yeah.
got tired, he went
Yeah.
to a superior grip because he was
So, yeah.
hunting. But that's different. Uh, but I understand. I just wanted to make sure you,
No,
again,
no.
I don't have a problem with assessing, because I think from a training standpoint, there's a time and a place for canine tactics. I'm gonna call it canine martial arts, for lack of a better
Mhm.
phrase. There's a time and place for canine martial arts. I heard Ivan Balabanov talk about, and I excuse me if I met him back in 2006, I guess. I'm not sure. We trained with him for a little bit. You know who he is, right?
Who?
Ivan Balaban. I was going to say, forgive me if I'm destroying his name. It's either Ivan Balabanov or Ivan Balabanov, but I think it's Balabanov. And
I've
I
seen that
maybe,
name. Yeah.
yeah, he is like two-time world champion and like 14-time national champion, or 15 time. I don't remember. It's over a dozen national champion and Schutzen slash IPO, whatever, and one of the best trainers in the world. There's so much that I could learn from him. That even though he's sport, right? And he does some protection work too. But I'll tell you this: the first time I met him, I was
Mhm.
going to I signed up for a protection seminar. And so I was like, this is when we had Preacher Man. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna take Preacher Man. And we're gonna have a great time. I'm gonna see what he can teach me and whatnot. And then I found out it wasn't a protection seminar. It
Mhm.
was the protection phase of Schutzen Sport. And so
Okay.
I was like, ooh, I don't want to take Preacher Man. I found out before I went. And I was like, I don't want to take Preacher Man because if they see Preacher Man, they're going to tell me to go home because
Mm.
Preacher Man's going to want to kill him.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
Preacher
yeah.
Man, he was a legit serious dog. He's going to want to kill him, clear the area. Nobody's coming around me. When Lee says guard, vacate the premises.
Right.
Um, so I was like, I'm gonna take a different dog. So we took Lynn, and we had a good time. She did some stuff, but she had already been conditioned that this is again a long time ago, right? Because I kind of been on both sides of the coin. Where even though I've never competed in sports. I've worked with enough sport trainers that I'm the type of person that if I go to somebody like Ivan Balabanov, I'm not here to tell you what I think. I'm here to shut my mouth and learn what you have to offer. And
Mhm.
then when I go home, I'm going to keep what's good and discard the rest. Or I'll keep what's good in my toolbox for maybe not protection, but for something else if I want to do sports, I need to hold on to this tool because
Mhm.
I do believe it's good to train in multiple venues. I don't think it's what, and I recommend this for you. I mean, I know that protection is your uh, forte and whatnot, but I think it would be good to train with some sport trainers, not because you want to pursue sports, but
Mhm.
because one of the reasons why I have an interest in sport is it tests the dog in a different way, and you can check and see like Dogman Trey is talking about is that dog if you teach a dog to bite and stay engaged in a bite, is it committed enough to do that? And you can actually look at the genetics. If you now maybe you're not a breeder. If you're not a breeder, it may not matter. But could you train a dog to stay in commitment? And you're like saying, but Lee, I don't have an interest in that. But sometimes working with people that have a different venue, you can pick up some things. I think we can all learn from each other to some degree. Now, there's obviously some people you can't learn from. It depends on what their intent is. But man, Ivan Balabanov is one of the. If there's anybody I could train with in the world, even though he does a different venue than my objective, I know I'm picking him because he knows so much canine psychology that he could teach me things that I could use in obedience. He could
Yeah,
teach
yeah.
me things that I could use in bonding. He could teach me in things that I could use with pack instinct or clear communication. These are some of the things that he talks about.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, man, because I don't, when I talk about transfer biting, it's not like I'm talking about it as if uh like that is the prime directive of something that I teach a dog, right? What I'm saying is I don't, especially if it's something that I teach. Now, again, I'm
Yeah,
trying to,
right,
make a distinction between the two because I agree. A dog that you did not tactically teach to do that, right? And just does it naturally, yes, that is a high indication that that dog is trying to get the hell up out of Dodge, right? I do agree with that. But when I speak about transfer biting, I'm talking about it from a purposeful and intentful way, right? Meaning
right,
I intentionally taught the dog to do that. But if you look at any videos, right, of my personal dogs, you don't even see my dogs doing any transfer biting, right? And you see that people are hitting my dog, right? And they're staying on the bite. So it's not like I disagree with the dog staying on the bite. I'm saying that there's a tactical advantage to teaching a dog to transfer bite. That's all I'm saying.
right,
But
right,
most
right. And I
people hate
agree with that to some degree. I agree to
yeah.
that to some degree, and that's why I brought up Ivan Balabanov, and I forgot initially when I before I even said it. He talked about in one of his videos that the idea of teaching a dog to target the weapon hand, and he said that in his opinion is actually a mistake. Not necessarily, he didn't quantify what he mean by that. So I'm not going to say he means that that's a mistake all the time, but
Mhm.
because there may be a time and place for that. But I can tell you my thoughts on that are largely in alignment with his, and here's the reason. When he sends his missile, well, and I'm going to call it a missile because why would you have when you're dealing with a weapon, the game changes. It's not the
Yeah.
same as an unarmed person.
Mhm.
All right, an unarmed person, you can have a short line, you can take your time. You're not a threat unless you're in my perimeter. All right, but if you have a weapon, then a knife or a bat might be different than a gun.
For sure.
And and the reason why I say that is what he was specifically talking about was a gun.
Mhm.
And you might think, well, in a gun, you definitely wanted to target the weapon hand. And here's Ivan Balabanov's viewpoint on that. And he said, if you teach the dog to focus on the gun instead of hit and hit fast, then you might end up not hitting. And if you don't hit, you're in big trouble because he's got a gun. And so sometimes that missiles arm full steam ahead. Uh, will if we have any regrets, we'll deal with that tomorrow. Might actually save your life because if you have a dog that's going to get killed by a gun, that buys you time to get out of safety, to get
Mhm.
to safety. Because if he doesn't hit, you might be shot.
Mhm.
So I can understand that his point was it may be good to teach the dog to hit the weapon arm if you can teach the dog to identify instead of assess. But when that dog's running and it's going in, his focus needs to be center mass.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And this because the center mass is a faster target acquisition rather than let me figure out where the weapon is and analyze the situation and is that a weapon or is that a cell phone.
Right.
You don't want your dog to be pausing because people walk around with cell phones all the time, and you don't want your dog to be pausing. You want that dog to hit and hit fast. And Ivan Balabanov's philosophy was hitting fast and quick is more important than hitting a weapon arm in many situations.
Well, I'll say this. I agree, right? And again, it depends on the scenario, right? Now, if we're talking close,
Absolutely.
meaning my dog is on a leash, right? And the person is, let's say, 3 or 4 feet away from me, right? I think it's more practical to say that it would be more advantageous for the dog to focus on the weapon hand, right? Even if it was a gun, because the reality is, if a dog is coming at you and you're going to point your gun at that person, the
Right.
natural reaction is going to be to jerk back because you don't want to get bit, right? Now, if the person, let's say your dog is loose, you're in your yard and somebody is coming in your yard, right? Obviously, in a situation like that where the dog is being released, right, to go get that person and that person is 20 yards away, then of course it makes more sense for that dog to come in hot, right?
Right. Right.
It's really no point in trying to find which hand he's. No, you need to go and you need to go now and you need to hit whatever you're going to hit, which is going to be the pretty much the chest area, right? Because
Right.
even that in itself, seeing a dog coming after you from 20 yards away, that's still going to make you move in a different way than you would if that pressure wasn't being put on you, which means what that's going to allow the handler to do while the person that is, pointing the gun at you, his natural focus is going to go down to the dog, right? If the dog is coming after him. So while he takes his head and sight down to the dog, the handler should be either pulling their gun out, right? Or finding safety. Right. So
Hmm.
again, these are all
Right.
tactical things when
It,
I'm saying,
it 100%. It depends on the situation because to me, I don't want to see a dog transfer bite because I'm a breeder first and a trainer second, and I want to make
okay,
sure the dog psychology is I'm committed. But from a training standpoint, once I know the dog psychology is committed, to me, in a short hand-to-hand type of combative situation,
For sure.
transferring the bite to go from a non-weapon hand to I'm going to hit you with whatever I can grab makes sense. Um,
Absolutely.
so
I agree with that.
I'm not in disagreement with you. My point is that I can understand both sides of the situation, and so now it's going to come down to this. Or I can understand both sides of the argument, but it's going to come down to the situation.
I agree. I agree with what you just said. From a genetic standpoint, right? You want to see that commitment from the dog. That's why I keep trying to emphasize
Right.
teaching, right? Transferring.
I heard you. I heard you say it,
You
and
know what I mean?
that's I'm in agreement with you on that, and that's
Yeah.
why I said once I have the assessment, now we can go to teaching it for protection.
Yeah.
Let me play a couple of short clips from this video. I think this video identifies what you were talking about when that lady was in court. The judge didn't care how many times the person was bit, but in case you meet somebody that's worried about it, this guy has some advice for you. Let me zoom in. Oh, it won't let me go any further.
Of the gelatin, but I've never been attacked by a block of gelatin. So I don't worry about what it does to a block of jelly. I worry about what it does to this asshole down the hallway who's trying to stab me with a big knife. And if I shoot him and he keeps coming, I should do what? Worry about jelly or shoot him again? And again, and again, and again, and repeat as required until what I want to happen happens. And when they fall on the floor, they're fine, but you can be killed by someone you've already killed. So if the son of a bitch moves or starts to get up, shoot him again. You shot my client while he was on the floor. I shot your client was a threat to me. You shot my client in the face. I shot your client and what was available to me.
So a lot of people say, well, why did you empty the magazine? He's saying he was on the floor. You shot him in the face. That's a little excessive. He's like, look, he was moving. I didn't know if he was still a threat. I'm going to end the threat. Now I pause this so he didn't, to make sure it is an assessment. Let me hit click play again.
Okay. Terminal ballistics. Pistols put holes in people. Rifles put holes through people. Shotguns at the right range with the right load will physically remove a chunk of shit off your opponent and throw that shit on the floor. And you will have to get someone to come in and clean this shit up with a shovel. But it's got to be the right load at the right range. 75 yards with a skeet load, it didn't do very much to him. You're right. Double out black at 3 yards, big asshole.
What are your thoughts?
I agree 1000%. That's why, again, look, if somebody is trying to, this is the thing I don't understand, right? We participate in such a barbaric industry, right? When you really, strip all the pretty stuff away, it's a very barbaric thing we do. We teach dogs to hurt people, right? On purpose. People that are trying to hurt us, right?
Right. That's the important part.
Right. So it boggles my mind when you get these people that are so tough. Oh, my dog is the hardest dog, because that's where a lot of people egos lie in their dog, right?
Sure.
And then when they say to me, oh, well, the judge is going to try to give you more time because your dog was excessive. What are you talking about? This person just tried to hurt me.
And if he's in your house and he's got a knife, that conversation isn't going to be even really happen if he's in your house with a knife. They're not going to care.
So I don't care how many times my dog bites somebody. I don't care in how many different places that my dog bites somebody. All I care about is that my dog is biting the person that's trying to hurt me or my family. That's all I care about.
Right.
So I don't understand why there's so much concern in the dog protection world that the dog didn't stay on one bite and it was a clean bite. I don't understand why there's so much concern about the bad guy. Like that really boggles my mind.
I have not once said thanks to our viewers or like it, share, subscribe. But don't just do that on my channel. If you do that on my channel, we certainly appreciate it. But also hit NWA King Corsos. And then Brandon, what's the name of your channel?
The Structure K9 Academy.
All right. And we can continue talking, but just make sure before we get out of here, and why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers now, since this video, by the way, was his idea, but he was having problems with his StreamYard tonight. So how do our viewers get a hold of you should they wish to do so?
Yeah, man. So you can look me up on pretty much every platform, the Structure K9 Academy. Then I also have my other platform, which is more geared towards self-defense using dogs, but also firearms training, also self-defense, hand-to-hand combat, which is the Force Multiplier. So you can look that up, but it's Force
Absolutely
with the number 4. So the Force with the number 4 multiplier. So between those two platforms, you can find me.
So, and also, what's the Structured K9 Academy? What's that?
That's more of my dog training. That's more of my dog training, mostly obedience training, but I do obviously, you know, I talk about protection training on that as well. But yeah, that platform is purely about dogs. The Force Multiplier, I'm tailoring that page to self-defense, a holistic self-defense. But I'm going to be showing dogs in that as well, because that is a part of self-defense.
And you're in Chicago?
Yes.
All right. Let's hit this question here, and then after you answer this question, I'm going to go ahead and write in my comment your website. What is it? The Force Multiplier?
The Force Multiplier with the number 4. So instead of the letter F, it's the number 4.
Yep. All right. I'm going to put that in the comment, but I'm going to make sure you got it right. Go ahead and answer Matt's question. Brandon, what breeds do you target for family guard dog?
So if I had the opportunity to choose a breed, ironically, even though I personally don't like this breed, but I am objective enough to know that it's probably one of the best family guardian breeds, which would be the German Shepherd. So if I could find a good German Shepherd for a family, that'll probably be the first breed that I recommend to a family that doesn't have a dog. Outside of the German Shepherd, I will go with a Rottweiler. That will probably be my number 2. And my number 3 would probably be a Corso.
Interesting. We have different opinions, but that's okay.
Yeah. What breeds would you choose?
Well, if you said
outside of your dogs, of course.
No, the reason I think it's cool. The reason why I disagree is because of the word family. If you were talking about a man and wanting a dog, I think all 3 of those breeds are fine. For a family, though, I think about children, and I know that female Rottweilers tend to be okay, but males sometimes can be rank driven, and and I think that's a concern for children. I would not want to, and that's also true for German Shepherds. So the German Shepherd males and the Rottweiler males, I would have concerns about their safety with children's safety around those breeds. If you drop something and the kid tells them to get back, a dominant nature dog is to me not good for a family. It's fine for a man that knows how to handle it, but not necessarily, in my opinion, the best with children. I've never seen that dominance issue with female Rottweilers. I've only seen it with males. And then the problem I have with the Cane Corso, there's certainly some good ones out there, but I have seen some nerve issues in some of those dogs where they can redirect. In fact, I know of a guy who had bent over to put his slippers on, and he kind of quivered when he had the dog for years, and he kind of quivered when he was putting his slippers on. Dog bit him in the head, and it startled I just think Cane Corsos a lot of them have kind of a nervous edge to them. Now, if you get a confident one that's stable, I think the Cane Corso is a good choice. But you have to make sure you're dealing with a breeder that selects for stability, environmental stability, social stability, and not dominance issues. I saw a video one time that I think about from time to time. Almost every time the idea of dominance and stability comes up, I think about this video that I saw of moose. I think it was moose. It may have been elks, but I think it was a moose. There was 2 bulls, males, and they were walking through a yard, and they came across a swing set. And one was the alpha, and the other one was a sidekick, and they got along, which may be a little bit unusual for two male moose or two male elk, but they were getting along in this particular situation. I'm pretty confident it was a moose, and you can probably look it up on YouTube. And the dominant one got his antlers hung in the swing set swing, and when he did, the subordinate one killed him. And I kind of see the same thing with some breeds like Chow Chows or Cane Corsos. You got to make sure you're dealing with a person that has a stable breeding program where they actually select for, because some of those dogs bond super tight and really loyal, right? And that could be a good thing. But some of those dogs that bond really tight are bonded so tight because they're a little insecure also. So it kind of depends. So that's my opinion. So family, because of that word family there, I wouldn't actually target a particular breed as much as I would a breeder.
I agree.
Because the breeder is going to have more to come into play than the breed. The breed is going to be a general rule, and the breeder is also a general rule. You put those two together, and now you got a better bet.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. 1,000%.
100%. 100%. You can't agree. That's my joke from earlier. My bad.
That's all good. That's one thing that I tell people all the time. It's funny, when I get a lot of dogs, obedience, right? And a lot of these dogs, like I got 2 German Shepherds now, 2 nerve bags, 2 totally fucking nerve bags, right? So, and I'm getting a lot of pit bulls like that, right? And I ask these people all the time, why did you get this dog, right? Or why did you get this breed? Because most people get these dogs, and obviously they're not using them for what they were originally made for. Most of these dogs are not even being bred for what they're originally made for, but they still carry the name of the breed, right? So when I talk to people, I'm like, hey, look, first of all, when you get a dog, right, the first thing you want to look at is the dog, right? Does this dog fit your lifestyle? Forget the breed, right? Like, as a matter of fact, I'll give you a better example. Right? I have right now.
I agree with that. I agree with that, though. I agree. Does the dog fit your lifestyle?
Does the dog fit your, forget the breed, does the dog fit your lifestyle? And the perfect example of that, I have a giant not a Labradoodle, a giant Bernedoodle right now, right? Beautiful dog.
The giant what?
Bernedoodle. Yeah. So it's a
Bernese Mountain Dog and a poodle, or what?
Yep. Beautiful dog, right? It looks like a poodle, but it has the black and tan marks from the Bernedoodle, right? Beautiful dog. It's actually a really good dog. I love the dog, right? But the people that had the dog has dominance issues, right? And it has possession, aggression issues, right? So long story short, I ended up having to take the dog from the owners, right? Or they relinquished the dog to me because they just couldn't handle that one thing. Everything else about the dog, great dog, but they just were not equipped to handle the possession, aggression, and the dominance issues that the dog has, right? So I trained this dog for 4 weeks. I ain't gonna tell you how much these people pay for training, right? And I still ended up.
Depends on the dog, depends on the family, depends on the need, depends on the trainer. So no need. Yeah. It's going to depend on too many factors for anybody to hear what you have to say and then lock it in for their trainer. It might be a different dog, different need, different trainer.
Exactly. But what I ended up doing, I took that dog and I ended up giving them another dog that I had to pretty much rescue because it was a better fit for them. The dog, it was a border collie lab mix, but energy levels much lower, much more biddable, right? Didn't have the possession issue, didn't have none of those issues that this particular dog had that these people was not equipped to have. But the first question that I asked them was, why did you get this dog? They rescued it from somebody else. So it was an emotional thing. Now, not to mention that the dog is a beautiful dog. So I know that has something to do with it, right? Because the dog is a beautiful dog. Anybody would take this dog just based off the looks. So long story short, when I'm evaluating a dog, I'm not necessarily looking at the breeds. That's why I see the guy keep asking me about oppressor. I only answered that question because he asked me about breeds specifically. But when it
Right.
really comes down to it, I don't really care about breeds. I look
Right.
at the dog. So when you
Right.
ask me about oppressor, I'm gonna be honest. Pressers are becoming like Corsos now. Too many people are breeding them.
Right. And then becoming very mastiff-y also. They're not what they were, in my opinion, 10, even 20 years, 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What do you think of this guy's comment? Another issue with protection dogs is the dog balanced enough to be an EDC dog, everyday carry, for those of you that don't know. An everyday carry dog, meaning it can go anywhere you need it to go, and not a dog that's too aggressive for the wife to take to the park with her 6-year-old. That's what you're talking about with fitting your needs, the right dog for you.
Yeah, you got to find the right dog for you. Yeah.
So I said what EDC means because Jaguar was curious. That means everyday carry, something you can take with you wherever you go, not something you have to leave at home because it's not convenient today. That's why, originally, I can honestly say 20 years ago, I liked the 120-pound dogs. I don't like them anymore. I like the 90, 80, 90-pound dogs because if I want a dog, I've worked enough dogs to know that when you get a rock solid 90-pounder, it's almost as strong as a 120-pounder, but yet it's so much more easy to carry because 120 pounds sitting in the passenger seat of my truck, it's just, if it can't lay down because the console's in the way. And if it does lay down and I've got food up there, I got drool on my food. So I've found an 80 to 90-pound dog can do anything I need it to do.
Yeah.
And still be durable. In fact, this is one of the things that I like about the pit bull. It's so durable for its size. You get a stocky built 55-pound pit bull, they're hard to hurt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then not to mention the pain tolerance on pit bulls. You know, the pain tolerance is through the roof.
I like having a pistol, but it's in your car nor in your person when you need a weapon. One of the things that's cool about a dog is if you're in the bathroom or you're asleep or you don't have your gun with you or on you. What I mean by that, if you're at home and you don't have the gun on you, maybe you're cutting whatever the situation is, a dog can come to you when you need it. And a pistol can't. A pistol only works if you have it within arm's reach or can very quickly get it before a threat is dangerous. A dog can come to you, and with a pistol, you can't call back the bullet when you shot it. If you shoot it, you need to be expecting terminal results. And with a dog, you can send it. You stop the threat. If a person starts hollering, you can call the dog back. You don't always have terminal results. It can be less than lethal force. So there are benefits to a dog over a pistol. In fact, FBI statistics I saw last time I looked into it, I have to admit it's been probably 4 or 5 years since I looked at this, but last time I looked, a dog was still the #1 deterrent for crime.
Absolutely, for sure.
It was not, there's so many things that people look at. A dog was better than neighborhood watch. It was better than security alarms. It was better than so many other things. They just would rather go to an easier home.
Yeah, for sure. It is funny you said that because even a dog that a person can recognize they're scared, they still would rather go to another house. Why? Because the dog is alerting everybody in the neighborhood something is wrong.
Right. A watchdog is a dog that barks when it sees something. A guard dog is a dog that bites when it needs to.
Yep. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yep. Everybody hit the like button, y'all, on my channel and other people's channel. All right. Next. Are you good if I scroll through some questions?
Yeah. We can get a couple of questions. Then I'm gonna go eat some
late.
of this chicken Alfredo my wife made.
All right. Gypsy taught me a lot, but I believe in all defense most of the time when it comes to training, not 100% all the time. This is where it depends on the objective. If you're doing sport, you're right. not all defense all the time. If you're doing, I don't think all training should be defense drive. I think there's a time and place for ascend. And
Mhm.
even Gypsy, despite
Yeah.
popular myth
Yeah.
and despite a lot of his rhetoric, which I don't want to have him turning in his grave, but he had a pit bull. What was her name? Angel?
No, that was oh shucks. That's
A friend of mine
what's
worked that dog a number of times. I have a personal friend that worked that dog a number of times. He said it was
uh
Gypsy's best dog, by the way. It was a pit bull.
yeah. What's her freaking name? I got a name right on the tip of my tongue. I know who you're talking about though.
It was a white dog, a white pit bull,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I know
and
exactly who you're talking about.
and he
That's
did sins. He did sins
probably
with her.
his most favorite dog that he ever had.
Yeah, and he did sins with her. So it was a pit bull that did sins. Long, I mean, I don't know how far his sins were, but it looks like it was over 50 yards. Under
Yeah.
gunfire was his
He did it with
justification
his
for that.
Panthers too.
Yeah. So I mean, he's obviously using some prey drive there, but he did it in a defensive application.
Well, let me clarify that, right?
Yep.
Because again, this is another misconception that a lot of people have. You know, when we talk about all defense all the time, they put it in the frame of it's devoid of prey drive, right? And that's just not
Right.
true. What we're saying, if we're talking about the psychology of the dog, right? So let's focus on that because I know it's just hard for most trainers to take their mind off of the psychology of the dog and apply all defense all the time to a tactical, right, mindset when it comes to using dogs for protection, right? So let's talk about the mentality of the dog. Here's the thing that people don't understand about Gypsy. Gypsy didn't try to take the prey out of a dog. He just didn't.
Right. I never heard him talk about it. I never heard him talk about prey. I did hear him talk about jute junkies and whatnot, but again, that wasn't necessarily. He never talked about prey drive in his approach. He talked about the jute junkie fixation obsession.
Right. Well, for him, he never excessively solicited prey drive as a tool, right? Like most trainers do, right? If we're being honest, right? Most trainers, from my standpoint, right? And then again, it depends on your application. I understand it in the sport world. I understand it in, the police application world, because a lot of that work is sending work, right? So I understand the or the excessive application. I'm going to use quotation marks when I say excessive, right? But again, because our focus is the civilian, right? A dog that has excessive prey drive is not the dog that you want to put in a civilian's hands. It is just not the dog that the vast majority of the everyday person can handle on a daily basis, right? So again, when a dog comes to us, what we use is what the dog has, right?
Sure.
We don't try to pull prey drive out of a dog that's just not prey driven, right? And this is why, from my standpoint, I say this all the time. You can train a dog only using defense. You can't train a dog only using prey. The reason why is because the vast majority of dogs don't have an excessive prey drive. So if you only try to use prey drive when we talk about protection, you will wash a lot of dogs that could actually be a good protection dog for the average everyday person, simply because you don't know how to channel the other drive.
Sure. I hear you. I think you can train a dog using only prey, but only if it's the right dog. And I think that's what you're getting at. Some dogs don't have it.
Most dogs don't have it. And that's why most dogs get washed, specifically in the sport world, because the vast majority of dogs don't have it.
Right. I heard a guy saying that, most prey driven dogs will actually quit when they're actually really challenged. And that's true, but it's not the case when you have a gladiator that likes combat. If you have a gladiator that likes combat, he's going to be confident there, but most dogs are not gladiators. They're just not. And most people don't need a gladiator. that's that prey driven, but there are some people like myself that like those dogs and they're responsible enough to own them. I have refused to sell dogs to some people though. I've had people contact me and say, I want a guard dog that'll sit on my porch. And I'm like, okay, do you have a 6 foot fence at minimum all the way around your property? All the way
Yeah.
around your property? No. Well, then I can't sell you a dog because you're going to put it on the porch. Neighbor's dog's going to come and heat. My dog's going to, and they wanted it protection trained. My dog's going to go over there to see that female in heat. That owner's going to come outside and say, I don't want my dog bred. Get out of here, dog. Now the dog thinks he's being threatened. It attacks that neighbor, and you're going to be sued, and then you're going to blame me. So I'm not doing that. I'm not selling you that dog. So it takes a very responsible person. It's like, if you're going to protection train a dog, you need to have that mindset of a biblical principle. If the bull kills somebody, the first time it can be an accident. But if it's trained to kill somebody, or it's the second time and you already knew it would kill somebody, now that's criminal.
Yeah.
So it's different. You have to be extremely responsible when you're dealing with an animal that's been trained to engage. Somebody said protect your castle. We both agree. And somebody said, do you own a Canis Panther?
No, I don't own a Canis Panther.
Yeah. And then I'm going to try to go through these quick. Got a question. I won't interrupt. If there are questions for you, I'll say them quick. If there are questions for you, I'm going to ask you to address them quick. Mm-hmm. I got a question. I got an 8-month-old. I think you meant Presa Canario. When he sees people, he gets so excited wanting to play. It's hard to calm him down. What can we do to break him of this? You want me to answer it, or do you want to answer it?
You can go first.
All right. I would say start off with obedience. Put the dog in a sit. Teach that dog to sit and stay. And the dog wants the reward of the social behavior. So you have to ask yourself, do you want to allow that or not? If you want the dog to be social, then you can allow it, but only after the dog sits and stays. The dog will learn the sit and stay leads to the reward of saying hello. And again, this is only if you want the dog to be social. If you don't want the dog to be social, put the dog in a sit stay and tell the person you want them to be impartial, because you need to tone down your dog's energy when it meets people. What do you want to add to it, Brandon?
No, I agree. I mean, you got to set rules, boundaries, and limitations, right? Dogs. The problem is most people give dogs too much love, and they give love at the wrong time, right? Love is praise and affection, right? And sometimes, a lot of the time, you're doing it and you're not even realizing you're doing it. So, like, if a dog comes and jumps on you, and you don't want that dog to jump on you, then you should correct that dog, not pet the dog. Because when you're petting the dog, what you're teaching the dog to do is jump on you, right? But what most people do when the dog comes and jump on them, even though they don't like it, the first thing they do is put their hands on them and pet them.
Yeah.
So, you have to understand the psychology of what you're teaching the dog indirectly and directly. So teach the dog rules, boundaries, and limitations. So for an example, if you're coming to the door, one of the things that I teach dogs to do is don't come past a certain threshold, right? Because what that would allow you to do is control the space around the door. So that way the dog is not right at your feet trying to push through the door. So you teach the dog boundaries, right? So, again, outside of that, I agree with everything you said.
All right, I'm gonna just scroll through some of these. Ivan, I believe he's getting a little bit into more protection than he was 20 years ago. So I don't know if that's still true. Maybe not. I like the American Pit Bull Terrier. Somebody else says American Bulldog. Depends on the dog. You can find prey-driven dogs. You can find defensive dogs. You can find unstable dogs. You can find unhealthy dogs in all of them. But the American Bulldog, generally speaking, is not as healthy as a proper bred. It's easier to find a healthy pit bull than it is a healthy American Bulldog, because the American Bulldog is going to have respiratory problems, heat tolerance problems, and hip problems. But if you find a good breeder, they're fine. That's one of my favorites. You ever worked a giant schnauzer? I have not.
I've never worked. I've done obedience with a couple, but I've never worked a giant schnauzer for protection work. No.
Oh, somebody donated a couple bucks. Thank you very much, RBG Lone Wolf. Dogman Trey. Ivan created the game, which is great for relationship obedience. I prefer this method rather than Gypsy's fur mindset of obedience. I agree with you. I think Gypsy was a master of the one craft of defense training. When it comes to obedience training, my personal opinion is they use too much compulsion. I think Ivan is the apex in the game when it comes to obedience training. His dogs are just unbelievable in that regard.
So that goes back to the question that somebody asked me earlier. Is there anything that I disagree with Gypsy on? And again, because I never want to put this in a frame of I am in a combative nature, right? Because I would never, like, even though I saw things that I wasn't necessarily a fan of that Gypsy did, it was never a situation where I would be like, hey, Gypsy, you're doing that wrong, right? Because it wasn't, I was the student.
Right, of course. That's right. That's what I was talking about. Right.
Or Gypsy, there's a better way to do it, right?
Right.
I was the student. It wasn't my space to challenge him on how he did training. It was just my job to take as much as I could from him, right?
Yep.
And then the things that I didn't necessarily like, I got from somewhere else. You see what I'm saying? So the vast majority, I would say 85% of the stuff I wouldn't disagree with. But one of the things that it wasn't something that I would say I agree with, so to speak, was the heavy compulsion training, right? I do use compulsion training because if you know how to use it with proper discernment, it is a useful tool, right? But the heavy compulsion training, right? And he didn't believe in using treats damn near. The only time Gypsy would use a treat is probably on a recall. But using treats, like, he was totally against that. Matter of fact, he got mad at me one time because he saw me using the treats in a video. I was doing obedience with somebody else's dog. So, and like, he legit got mad at me, like legit. But, you know, that's not something that I'm totally against. Now, I don't use treats as my foundation, right? I'm not obsessive with treats like I see a lot of trainers are, right? That is not my foundation, but I will use treats specifically with puppies, right? I will use a lot more treats than I would with an older dog. So that's something that me and Gypsy will probably, you know, defer on.
Is this correct? Is this correct? K9multiplier.com or not .com?
No, not .com. I'm actually putting my website together. It's just the force multiplier. So you spell out the word force with the number 4.
But is the rest of it right? The 4 multiplier?
Yes, but you got to put ORCE after the number 4. Yeah.
Okay. So the number 4 ORCE multiplier.
Yeah, that's just on Facebook, Instagram. I don't have any content on YouTube with that particular yet, but that is a YouTube channel as well. So all the social medias is the Structured K9 Academy and the Force Multiplier.
All right. Next we have no press. Let's see what you care for EDC, fellas. Somebody is asking about my EDC. Well, we got my dog, which for protection I use American Sentinel, and for my EDC carry I like the Smith & Wesson 9mm shield with the. I personally use their custom shop one with the 4-inch barrel, and I've got a Holosun objective on it. But that's up to, and that's my favorite EDC gun. Of course, we also have other things. You know, we have Springfield Hellcat and whatnot, but I like the Smith. I know a lot of people like that Sig P365. I personally don't like it. everybody that I know that loves it, I show them one thing I don't like, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I can do it, I can do it," and then they look and they try it and they can't do it, and that is in the normal grip of the P365, you can't push your mag release. You got to turn the gun just a tiny bit, not much, but you do have to turn it. I want to be able to reach it without turning my grip.
Tony,
Yeah, we have a range on our property. We do a good bit of firearm stuff.
Nice.
Someone says hard to find a good Corso, hard to find a good Rottweiler, even harder to find a good GSD German Shepherd in this country.
I would probably agree with you. I would probably agree with you. I think you can find more German Shepherds than you can Corsos and Rottweilers, simply because German Shepherds are more popular. So off the sheer numbers, I would say it's easier to find a decent German Shepherd, specifically if we're talking about for a family, than it is Corso or Rottweiler.
Wow, we got a lot of comments, man.
Yeah,
we might have to do a number 2 and save these comments for the next one. I don't know if we can. If I end it, do these comments stay on the live?
I don't know. That's
all right. Let me read them real quick, and if you want to save it for another one, we'll do another one. All right. So it says, "What is your go?" Someone said, "Trey, what's your pit bull line?" Great show, guys. Thank you very much. They aren't as big as the breed. They ain't as big as the breeds mentioned, but they have good things about the Airedale Terrier. My EDC right now is a Pig 365 macro. See if you can touch that. Everybody says they can hit the mag release with their shooting grip. Go check it. Get your shooting grip, not your adjustment grip, not the roll in the hand, your shooting grip. See if you can hit that mag release. Or if you actually have to take a second, flip the gun and push it and then flip it back. You can flip it real quick and you can go back and quick or there and back real quick, but on some guns you don't have to. There's a pit, but then there's a game dog. Most people never seen one. You're right about that. Throw the Radian Ramjet comp on the P35 Trey. Epilepsy is running rampant in the press out of Europe. I hope there's no bad ones here because I'm putting them up on the screen without even reading them. That's not good. What are the main pros and cons of muzzle protection training, Lee? So, and I want Brandon to hit that also. So we've done a little bit of it, and I guess you could say it teaches the dog to use a body if you do a lot of it. I don't do a lot of it. I know a lot of people say you don't have to teach a dog to bite. That a dog can bite just like a fish can swim. Well, in my opinion, that is wrong. And I'm going to tell you why it's wrong. Yes, a dog knows how to bite to eat kibble, but a dog does not know how to bite always in defense. A lot of dogs are in and out real frontal. They're not committed on the bite. Also, even in prey and predatory, go look at wild animals, wolves, bobcats, mountain lions, cheetah, they give their babies wounded prey. Those wounded prey have to learn how to subdue that prey. Those animals grow up and get experience on the bite. So just because they have a bite and they have an innate nature towards that calling of predatory behavior doesn't mean the experience doesn't make them better at it. And one of the things that Brandon said at the beginning was to take that dog to its full potential. So just because a dog has an innate calling to it doesn't mean he's going to excel at it. And if you want to take a dog to its full potential, I want a dog that knows how to bite. Now, with that said, I probably said some stuff here that a lot of people who like Gypsy don't necessarily like me saying, because my understanding is Gypsy said you don't have to teach a dog how to bite. A dog knows how to bite. A fish knows how to swim. But I think we all seen that animals give their cubs and babies wounded prey so they can learn how to bite. And we also know that defensive situations come with stress.
Yeah. So okay. Let me bring context to that, right? So I agree with you, but the context is for us, we don't do any bite work or anything like that with puppies, right? Like me personally, I don't really like to see a dog until it's like 8 or 9 months, right? And really it has to be a strong dog even with that, right?
Right. I
So,
agree, especially if you're doing defensive work as the main focus. And if
well,
you are, go ahead. I got something I want to add to it about prey-driven dogs and doing defensive work when you get done. Go ahead.
yeah. So because we don't now, okay, so let me put it to you like this, right? Our bite work is infused in our protection work. So we don't do bite pillows like I guess I would say the traditional, right, or the modern traditional way of
Right.
training dogs. They coming out the womb 6 weeks and you're doing, flirt, pull, doing what you see a lot of people doing. We don't do that, right? So for us, it does take a level of maturity for me to really work with a dog. So because the dog already has that level of maturity, the way that we train, we don't necessarily have to do bite development, right? And this is another thing as well, because the way that we need our dogs to bite is different than what you would see on a sport field, right? We don't have the same requirements for a dog biting, right? So we don't teach the push bite. That's not something that we teach, right? We actually prefer our dogs to pull on the bite, right?
Yeah.
We don't teach pocket biting or bicep biting, right? So these are
Right.
all things that you have to teach a dog specifically in the sport world. So because we don't do those things, we don't have to do that kind of bite work or bite development, right?
Right. Right.
So
I don't like the bicep bite either. It
yeah,
looks cool, and a lot of people want to see the dog stay in the pocket
yeah,
because it looks cool. It shows commitment, but it is
yeah,
a very vulnerable place.
right.
And when we're doing hog dogs, the last place I want my dog, if I want him to have a long career, is out front in the
Hmm.
pocket of a hog with 4-inch tusks.
Yeah,
So, we teach a hog to grab an ear and keep its body parallel to the hog side by side. So when that hog is tusking, the dog is nowhere around the hog's tusks. And um, it's a tactical aspect where if I was going to do an upper arm bite, I'd want the dog on the tricep, not the bicep. So the dog's behind the man, and you have to circle while the dog's pulling, and you can't ever get to him because it's like taking the man's back.
hmm,
Like, let's say you're coming at me, you're going to hit something. Don't wait till after he comes down and get the bicep, because now you're in the pocket and you can get hurt. Get him when he's up here, grabbing it. Now
hmm.
the man, he can't
Absolutely.
get you.
I agree 1000%.
Do you know
Yeah.
Mike Dizak?
I'm familiar with him. Never
Yeah,
had a
that's the guy.
conversation with him. Gypsy actually talked about him a lot. So because Gypsy talked about him a lot in a very positive way, I have a high level of respect for him. There's a few trainers that whether they know it or not, Gypsy, even if he disagreed with some of the things that they did in their training, he was very objective to where he could still recognize that's a good trainer. And Mike was one of those people that he used to actually talk to me about all the time, that he had a high regard for, even though that he would get mad at Mike, because of some of the stuff that Mike did, which, again, Mike is his own trainer.
Yeah,
But
he said
Mike
he got
was
mad
one
at
of those
you for
trainers
using
that
food.
Gypsy talked about a lot. So I know Mike actually had a close relationship with Gypsy.
Mike is a good trainer. He reason why I ask, he remembers Asia. Mike actually did quite a bit of work with Asia. That's the pit bull.
Yeah.
He said she's an awesome dog. Dogman Trey said Asia. Gypsy did pray. He just didn't know it.
I wanted to address that, right? Now, look,
Yeah.
if you know anything about Gypsy, right, you cannot believe that Gypsy was that dumb to where he did not know when the dog was in prey drive. You cannot believe if you ever had a conversation with Gypsy, there's no way that you came out of that conversation actually believing that Gypsy did not know anything about prey drive.
He just didn't want to admit it because it's against the application philosophy.
I would agree with that, right?
It's not that he didn't use it. He just
tell me, as intelligent as Gypsy is, that you actually believe that he did not know when the dog was in prey drive,
and that he didn't use it. He used it. He just didn't want to. He just didn't want to state it because that's not his philosophy of application.
Yes, I would say that, and then what I will also say is, and this is where the conversation kind of flips to where it kind of shifts from the mentality of the dog and the application of the dog, right? So even in the comments, after I've said many times that all defense all the time is not solely about the mentality of the dog, it's about the application of the dog. So even when the dog is in prey drive, we're still using it in a defensive manner.
Right.
And that's what people, for some reason, they just, it's like they just don't get it. It's like it's going over their head.
Right. Well, the AR-15, AR does not stand for assault rifle, but a lot of the public thinks it stands for assault rifle. They think, well, no, it doesn't stand for automatic either.
Oh, really?
No, it stands for Armalite. Armalite was the company that came up with the AR-15 and the AR-10. The AR actually is an abbreviation from the original manufacturer, AR Stoner. Armalite, or excuse me, Stoner is the inventor of it, and the AR stood for Armalite, which is the abbreviation for their manufacturing company. But yeah, a lot of people. This is the same with what you're talking about with the prey. So people in the news, they hear AR, they think assault rifle, they think attack, attack, attack. Well, the AR-15 is actually an excellent home defense gun. So just because people think it's attack doesn't mean it can't be used for defense also. And the same is true for prey. Mike Dizak says defense can be used to move a dog into prey when it's done correctly. And he also says that all defense all the time should pertain to the application, not necessarily to the training.
I'm not really sure what he meant by that. I saw that.
I think what he's saying is in training, you can use prey drive, but in the application, it's all defense all the time.
There you go. Yes. There you go. That's literally what I just said.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. We're in agreement. Gypsy did prey. He just didn't. Okay, let me scroll on past. We already hit that one. My mom has a Great Dane with excellent defense and protection instincts, but no prey drive. Well, now you got to get somebody that can work that dog and do some what's called drive channeling. A Great Dane, if you look at its ancestry, it doesn't mean this dog has it. He may not have any prey drive, or he may not have much. But the Great Dane does in its ancestry have sight hound. Sight hound did have prey drive. So if you get somebody that can channel that dog's defense, let the dog win, and then go into evasive behaviors, a lot of times they can pull out prey drive out of a dog that's not initially showing it. It may not be a lot, but sometimes once you get it started, you can grow it pretty quickly, and sometimes you can't. Depends on that dog. Cap his drive, which means when he starts to show it, go ahead and stop it and have the guy leave. Let him rest. Don't try to rush it. This is what Brandon's talking about earlier when he says people want to go too fast. Let the dog assess and think about it. Might want to wait a week. Might even want to wait a month, right? So give the dog time to recover. Let him grow his confidence, and then you might get more prey drive out of it the next time around. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I agree.
Champion Bolo was a very prey-driven individual. He is not our chosen breeder. Eli and his sons aren't chosen. We choose our dogs to. Okay, I understand what you're saying. I think he's saying we don't let the dogs breed. We choose who breeds. But anyway, that's not really a topic here. I don't understand that comment, but no offense intended at him. Let's see. By the way, for those of you that don't know, he's talking about some various pit bulls. Eli was a dog bred by Floyd Boudreaux. Bolio was produced by Carver, owned by Indian Sonny, and eventually owned by Pat Patrick. But that's another topic. That's why I love the in-between breed, the ADBA working pit bulldog. Alan Scott and Joe Painter can be very nice as well. Your dog should never be in front of you.
I don't know what
Yeah, I don't. It depends if you're walking, heeling, engaging. Those are three different situations or two different situations. But yeah, a little vague. Next, Marcus says, I was blessed with conversation with Gypsy and Miss Lori. Um,
Mm.
any experience training wolf dog hybrids in obedience? I would not want a wolf hybrid. Why would I want to take all the thousands of years of domestication and throw it away? We've
Right,
refined an animal to work with us, not an animal that I don't want to start back to ground zero. I
right.
think that going to a wild animal. You agree?
Oh, for sure, 1000%.
All right. There's just too much progress that's been made with selective breeding. So find the right breed, find the right breeder, get the right dog from that, and then you'll be better off. Scott dog's great for hogs. A good painter dog is far superior for man work. Um, I actually agree with Mike on that one. The Scott certainly seems to have a lot more pit bull like traits. So generally speaking, you're going to have a better heat tolerance and better agility and better health.
I think, if
Then
I'm not mistaken, because he deals with bulldogs, American bulldogs, so his dogs are probably the Scott dogs, and I love his dogs.
who's that?
Mike,
I think he's going to have. I
if
could be
I could be
wrong.
wrong.
Yeah, I don't know what lines Mike actually has except for what he's got from Gail Raponi, and I think Gail Raponi basically what's it? It's not what's it begins with an H. Um, it was, and maybe Painter and it's not Heinzel. I can't. I'm always thinking of Howard Heinzel, which was a pit bull guy. There's a bloodline of pit bull or of American bulldogs that begins with H. Mike, if
Hermes,
you're still no, it's not Hermes.
Hermes,
Um, I know what that one is too. Mike, let us know the bloodline that
Hines, it's Hines.
Heinz, yeah. So I knew it was an H. It was on the tip of my tongue. I just couldn't think of it. Uh, Popularity is if you want a good American bulldog, holler at Gail Raponi. I don't know if he's still breeding them. Mike can tell us. Popularity is what runs the breed, in my opinion. I agree with you. Uh, I'm a Ruger LC9 guy. There's some good Rottweilers. Y'all gonna have to stop for the comments. We want to wrap this up. We appreciate the support, though. Breeder here in Australia. Thanks for
Yeah,
answering all the questions, fella. Let the man get to that Alfredo.
Alfredo,
Uh,
yeah.
all- okay, yeah. All dogs get popular, overbred, and bad breeding. Yep. When something gets popular, why does it get popular? People want to get a dog that's popular because they think they're going to have puppies and sell them and make a lot of money. And when they do that, they're skipping the performance selection because that's work.
Hmm.
And when you skip the performance selection, the standards go down.
Yeah.
Anybody that says I produce 100% success has very low standards. The higher your standards, the lower your success.
Yeah.
So if excellence is obtained by pursuing perfection, and perfection doesn't exist. So you
Hmm.
raise that bar high enough, you got a 100% goal. The goal of a good breeder should be to raise it up, breed the best. Raise it again, breed the best. Build a new population of the best, raise it up, build it again. And so
Hmm.
you're always removing the undesired traits from the gene pool.
Yeah.
And people that are breeding for popularity don't do that. They just breed anything and everything, get it pregnant and sell it. All dogs will get popular. Okay, next. The Hellcat Pro is something. Got a question for. I don't want to discuss that. To me, that's if you're interested in this program, do your research. Okay, that's a fake it till you make it, and then fake it some more. Um, a show a dog. Tell me I'm lying.
I'll say I agree with you.
All right. Show a dog to work a hold. Gypsy
Yeah.
100% taught dogs to bite. However, the manner which he did it was unorthodox yet effective. Law Foundation presses or trap. I don't want to talk bad about somebody like that. I don't know who that is, so I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I'm familiar with who they're talking about.
And maybe telling the truth. I don't know. If you know, you can say, but I don't know.
Uh, I would say he got some good looking dogs. I'll say that.
Grip development in puppies is essential. Um, in my opinion, this guy does not even deserve. DDK does not even need to. I don't want to say anything bad, but I'm gonna go ahead and say something. DDK shouldn't even be in the conversation of protection dogs or sport dogs. All he's doing is tug toy, obedience, and he has his dogs biting him with his children, doing attacks on his children that are definitely fake, and the dog knows it. That dog is biting a sleeve the same way it'd bite a tennis ball. And anybody
Yeah,
that doesn't recognize that is so green that you go back and
yeah,
watch some basic videos from anybody that's credible.
yeah. I mean, that's
The guy had. Go
of
ahead. What?
marketing. He does a great job of marketing. So I
Yeah, he's
admire
a
that.
businessman. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a businessman. He's marketing. He
yeah,
the dog Hulk was sired by a dog named Ghostface. Ghostface went back to, oh man, I can't remember the guy's name right now. I know this guy. He had piebald the English Mastiff in him. Okay, he was not even piebald. The Ghostface dog had piebald English Mastiff in him. He looked
mm,
like a Saint Bernard type dog. Anybody that thinks a 170-pound dog is a pit bull
good boy. Yeah,
is ignorant. I'm not
you are.
saying they're stupid. I'm saying they're ignorant. There's a difference between ignorant and stupid.
Yeah,
And there's another one, foolish. Three different things. Ignorant doesn't know but can learn. Stupid cannot learn. And
yeah,
foolish already knows the truth but denies it.
yeah,
Okay? Because they just want to be foolish. Like if you know smoking is bad for your health and you choose to do it, you're not stupid. You're not ignorant. You're just
you
foolish.
fool.
If
Yeah,
yeah, and if you can't learn that smoking's bad for your health, you're
you just
stupid. But if you don't know it's bad for your health, like in the 1940s, they actually said it was healthy. They
yeah,
were ignorant. Okay. They could learn though. All right. Same with wisdom, intelligence, and smart. Three different things.
hmm
Wisdom means you is the opposite of foolish. Smart is the opposite of stupid. And what was the other thing? The other one I
intelligent.
said? Intelligent is the opposite of ignorant.
hmm
Chest bite is brutal. I've seen it with my giant on a live bite. Fella had a screwdriver too. I saw a guy, or know of a guy. I didn't see it, but I know of a guy that had a screwdriver in his neck. Believe it or not. Defense is a principle. Gypsy for sure knew what prey drive was. The reason he didn't say it is because he tended to define prey as a chase bite. Mike is the truth. Mikey. Okay, I don't know what that's about, but okay. But he knew what prey drive was and how to use it with defense. However, he was very against chase biting. But he did use it in certain situations. We saw it with Asia. And you said some Canis Panthers also.
Yeah. So real quick, I know we're trying to get through these, right? When Gypsy did that, right? I believe, because I've never had a hardcore conversation about when he sent dogs. I believe just, having the small conversations we had about it and just looking at the footage, the videos, I believe he was doing it to show that his dogs could do it.
Right.
I don't believe he did it from a standpoint of it was all about the prey drive, right?
He knew there was a time and place for it, even if he didn't need it.
Right, exactly.
Hope you find success with the what's that? Chinkapita. Okay. Gail has good bulldogs, no hip or breathing issues. Yeah, Gail knows what he's doing. Have a good night, fellas. Take care. Scott for structure, health. Scott for structure and health. Dash for Johnson. A dash of Johnson for fire and man work. I agree with that. Hines. Everyone keep their breeding real. Bulldogs. He wanted 10K for his mutts. I don't know. Oh, you're talking about DDK.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's who he's talking about.
Yeah.
All right. And tell me if I got this right while we're closing. Let's go ahead and close with this.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I've got it. The force multiplier. That's right.
Yep.
All right. So y'all can find Brandon Edmonds by the Force Multiplier. Y'all take care and thank you for your time. We had a good time. It's almost 2.5 hours here. So with that, I'm going to sign off and say y'all have a blessed night. Brandon?
I appreciate you, man. It was an honor.
Yeah, thank you. Y'all take care. Good night.
All right.